We are live. G'day, guys. Good to see everyone. Don't do that to me, please. Trying to adjust all these windows. As you do. Let's see how far I can push. No, about there. Good. How is everyone? Why hasn't the chat thing? Don't forget to please hit the like button. And back to the stream. Yeah. I still have to wait. It usually, when it actually starts, the chat thing doesn't come immediately through. And it will miss some of the earlier stuff. So just reminding people, everything prior to that. So is pretty much cactus. It's just the way it works. Marco, good to see you here, mate. Yes, yeah. Good morning, good evening, Alex as well. It's just prior to that, it's because until you go live, it will not bring things across, and only brings things across in synchronicity. That's one thing that StreamYard pulled the whole chat across. This one pulls it at a certain point. So they've all got their little issues, so to speak, but that's how it works. G'day, Sosa. Good to see you, mate. Yes, we had a pretty lively show earlier. The morning one, it sort of included Bart and Lukey and Jared popped in as well. So it was a full group. I don't know whether Bart's going to drop into this one. He may not. Depends what he's doing. I know Pim won't, because if Bart comes in with Ted, that'll be it. She just doesn't trust Ted. He's an awful, absolutely disgraceful bear. He could say anything. G'day, Tracy. Good to see you. And Melina, good to see you. Yeah. I had a haircut. Yeah. Sort of all the trim the sides and all that quite a bit in that regard. A bit more on top, as you can see. So it's a bit longer, but stylish. Thanks, Sosa. G'day, Bjorn. Good to see you, mate. Yeah, it's just talking about my stylish hair. Got to make up some stupid story, but just head and why is it? Just let me just move that, because it's distorting the size for some reason. Anyway, we'll let rephrase my earlier commentary. Your piss take long enough to make an oxalate juice. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Probably does. I could sell it. Vegetards would love it. Yes. Harry's oxalate juice. Yes, it would work. Yes. Teddy bears. Yes. Actually, in the chat, it's different. I get a different image than the one on the screen. That's weird. That is really weird. Anyway, it's probably another. I should send them an email telling them. So you're growing your hairs at 1960s or 70s style long. Yep, gotcha. No, we really, luckily in Tasmania, because there wasn't any real major incidents, we haven't really had sort of experienced a full brunt. While we're sort of, we don't, it's quite restrictive to move to other states or overseas and all that, and that's a bit of an issue. But actually within the state, we've really had no real lockdowns or any real restrictions. It's probably because Tasmania's an island, 500,000 population, cut off from the mainland to a large extent. We were sort of less exposed in a sense. And when we did lock down as a state, internally we didn't have to, because there was, one minor incident in the north. It got sorted, and from then on, basically we never had an incident. So, but unfortunately, the world still goes on, and there are still ramifications for that. Yes, unfortunately. We've got to only convince the politicians you only need to improve your vitamin D, and your issues will be much better, and potentially also a lot of the other stuff will be much better. Oh, thank you, mate. Yeah, there's an uncultured finger. He just asks for it, doesn't he? He just comes in. He loves it. He loves it. He loves to be, brutally treated, with contempt. And he always appears in the wrong crowd, doesn't he? He always appears in the wrong crowd. He slags off the night crowd at the Eurasian, especially the Europeans, and then he appears on there. Doesn't come in the morning one. He comes in the night one. All fired up, had a few probably drinks and ready to go. Is that right, T1? Blinky's on. Blinky's in motion. Yes, yes. If that's about me, yeah, pretty good. Yep, nothing really to, be worried about, or nothing to complain, because nobody's listening anyway. Locked in Tasmania for the time being. Yeah, it's weird. It's really weird. God, I had a nice, sort of had a nice shave as well. So years, with a proper, not with a Bix, with a that sort of where proper razor, and proper the cutthroat types, but with the safety thing, as they call it now. Everything's sort of PC, but anyway, you know what I mean. And yeah, it was nice, things like that. It's just damn crazy. And I sort of still try and get around to different outlets and stuff like that, to try and actually just spread the money around to help these small businesses. I want them to be viable. I want them to be still around when all this nonsense goes away, hopefully. It's a worry, but you know what I mean. Because if we lose a lot of that, then when you've got the big players dominant, that they impose their very, uniform type, culture in the way they do things and all that. So it annoys me. Harry's lens, fish eyes, affects me. It looked like his shelf on the right is on a lean. You're actually right. It is a bit, but I'm sort of, slanting on the side. I'm sort of relaxed, and, yeah, that's a bit about it. So, oh well. Yeah, are you suffering from seasickness, Richard? Get a tablet. G'day, Scotty. Yes, it is evening here. It's 6:16 Australian Eastern Standard Time in the evening. Oh, were you out? Oh, we didn't miss you. Hey, you missed Ted and all his antics. God, you missed a good show earlier. It's full on. You out visiting your woke mates? Is that it? Does that mean? Yeah. I hope he's okay. Or no, we're having a bit of comedy, but yeah, I hope he's fine. Maybe he's just taking like Bobby or other people that have just sort of taken a bit of a rest from all of it for a while. They've got other things, priorities. So I don't blame them. People come and go. There's a few others that have sort of I haven't seen for a while, and then occasionally I notice that they pop up here and there. Sometimes they put a comment here and there, but they're not, on a regular thing because of maybe they've got too many other things on their plate and in happening in their life. That's understandable. I mean, it's nice to see them around, but at the same time, people do have other things that can take their time. It's just the reality. Yes, neither have I. I hope he's well. Yes. It is. I'm always surprised when I don't see Blinky around for a while. I always wonder what the hell's going on. And then he pops up here and there out of the blue, making some ridiculous comment or basically trolling me on Skies. You did it wrong type or somewhere else. Little bugger. Look, yeah, I hope things are better for your business and all that. Yeah, it is hard in that regard. So I try and get around and try and support people because it's not easy. It's difficult. And that's the reality. Intermittent fasting, skipped breakfast or dinner. Why? Whatever suits you. I mean, it's best to eat in terms of circadian rhythms. It's always best to eat within daylight hours. That's the best, because once your melatonin goes up, your digestive system starts turning off. You're more likely to store more things at night than basically, you still look. You will still basically utilize that food. Don't get me wrong, and your body will still utilize. There's still a lot for just the general metabolic processes that are required, but the small amount. So if you constantly, we're not talking about the occasional here and there, because most people will vary. Certain days, like on the weekends, I tend to eat sometimes a bit later because I'm visiting, friends and stuff like that. Through the regular weekdays, I usually eat in, midday to the mid-afternoon. So anywhere between 12 and 4 o'clock I do most of my eating, so to speak. But on the weekends, that just goes out the window. I don't follow that because you need to be sociable with people. It's just simple as that. Sometimes even on a Friday, I could have an evening meal. But as long as you're getting some level of time-restricted feeding and giving your digestive system a bit of a rest, it's a good thing. It's healthy. Let's put it that way. So Bjorn asks, your thoughts on ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine in treating COVID? Both have shown to be pretty good for a number of people. I would say hydroxychloroquine probably not as good as ivermectin. So if I was going to pick which one of those two, it'd be ivermectin, not hydroxychloroquine. Hydroxychloroquine does have far more side effects in that regard, so it's probably another reason why I would give it a miss. But if I was, the ultimate thing that I would actually make sure is to have my vitamin D levels high, because that is the real big elephant in the room. It's not ivermectin, it's not hydroxychloroquine, it's not any of all this other stuff for medication. It's vitamin D status. It's a respiratory infection. Get your vitamin D levels up. Simple as that. You look at the recent one that I just did today, a quick one, and not too long ago, about an hour ago, more or less, posted about a half an hour ago, or an hour ago now. It's nearly an hour, and it's based on parasites as well. So I mean, yeah, really, vitamin D. The sun, the sun is such a therapeutic thing. I put that as number one out of all of this sort of stuff. Yeah, ivermectin's pretty good. You can take it on the first day, you can take it on the third day. It can bioaccumulate, it's not a good thing. And then you don't take it at all until the 6th and then 8th day if it persists more than a week. If it doesn't, you don't bother. And it's a really quick, it nips it in the bud. Really, it's like a hammer. It's even better than hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin. There is a rare condition. I forget the name. I did mention it last time, but I just cannot for the life of me remember. And these people usually know who they are. They're usually warned off these things by their doctors, because it usually is in very early age that this condition is noticed, and they can have problems with things like ivermectin. But the majority of the population, have no issues whatsoever. And it's a far better than most of the other stuff out there in terms of its being able to just stop it, this disease process in its track very fast. But I would say that while that is good, it's also really important to have a good vitamin D status. That is really, that prevents all the cytokine storms, that regulates your immune system, that actually basically is the ultimate protection you can get, the sun. So yes, get those levels up. And it's free, which is great. The sun is free. G'day, Bert. And the other thing that I did forget is gargling, which I've talked about before. Gargling is, when we talk about salt water, gargling is really, really good. It's what the Vietnamese do 4 times a day, and they had some of the lowest levels of deaths because, again, they had vitamin D status good because they're outdoors. Majority of them are, farmers involved in some level in agricultural outdoor activities, work. There are not many of the population that are involved in indoor activities like in factories or in office workers. So large proportion of the population have got very good vitamin D status. Plus, they gargle. So it's a big thing over there. And it basically kept the viral load down. So even if you got it, the viral load was low. So you basically were able to deal with it much faster with a good vitamin D status. So gargling is another thing you can throw in that. And that costs nothing either, because you can gargle with anything. They were using Listerine, but you can actually use water. You can use iodine, water. You can just, any sort of gargling activity will actually reduce the load. So that's what those early research showed. Remember the first video that I did, I actually put a link on the Japanese studies that were on gargling. So the information's been from the beginning, 11 months ago. It's just, while I put the links up, I was going to do a follow-up video, I didn't, and that was because YouTube at the time were really going after anybody that actually they were like threatening to take down sites and do all sorts of things, and I didn't want to basically lose my channel or basically really get punished by them severely. And so I pulled back a bit, and I didn't actually make too much stuff at the time, but there wasn't going to be, I did have a follow-on a bit later on when things eased up a bit. Yeah, I mean, it's easier when you've got a big YouTube's, and you're a big personality, you can get away with it. If you're small, they just hammer you. Yeah, unfortunately, it's just the reality. If you're a small fry, yes, you're far more vulnerable. So I had to be a bit on the careful side. And just so most of the messaging then was coming through my live streams, which they monitor far less, because it's very hard to monitor live streams. There's just too many hours, too much stuff in that regard. Yes. I hope you do. I hope you do. A lot of small business people do provide far more employment than the big end of town, and we need small business to survive. They provide a lot of services that the big end of town are not interested in providing. Simple as that. We don't want to lose that sort of stuff. So I hope you do survive, and I hope people in your area support you. Yep. More comments. Yeah, cost fucking nothing. Couple of cents. It's cheap. There's no money in it. That's why they push the other drugs, because there's bloody money in it. It's like the worst vaccines are basically all the expensive ones. The ones with the mRNA, the ones that have had problems in the past in autoimmune issues and all sorts of stuff. Where Noravax is basically, a traditional one, like they used to make the actual flu ones and all that, which is just all the spike proteins, deactivated and then put in a culture to be increased in numbers and then injected into you. It's like getting a small amount of the virus itself, like getting the infection, but in a controlled way of deactivated, so they can't reproduce in you. You can't get through the receptors and all that. So it's like getting a small viral load, and your immune system fights it, gets updates its template, and then you're protected. Those traditional stuff. But even people, if you've got a good vitamin D status and you're on a good animal diet where your body is actually quite strong and all that, you probably don't need it. But it's something as an alternative, the Noravax one, where it's safer because it's more in the traditional way. It's not all these sort of funny modified versions and stuff like that. I don't subscribe to all the other bullshit because it is bullshit, all this sort of nano stuff and whatever. It's just bloody nonsense. I've been in the IT industry since the 80s. I used to build computers, build cabling systems and all that, based on Moore's Law, based on lithographic technology and all that. It's impossible, that is years into the future. It's not that it's never going to happen, but technologic at this moment, we're not even anywhere close to in terms of machine tools and what they can do and all that. Forget it. Trying to create something the size of a virus or whatever that's actually can be programmed or intelligent or whatever. Forget it. That's just nonsense. People that come up with that shit, just bloody idiots, either deliberately creating mischief or deliberately trying to cause divide and rule tactics and all that. And people in the carnivore community shouldn't jump on that shit because it's crap. It's crack pottery. It's nonsense. And it makes us look like idiots. We should basically say that there are health issues here. The reason why people are vulnerable is because they're eating a species inappropriate diet. They're not getting enough vitamin D. We demonized the sun for the wrong reasons, just because we incorporated seed oils into our diet, which incorporated into our skin and made us vulnerable to burning. And now that we're on a species appropriate diet without these fucking seed oils, and with fat soluble vitamins that regulate those collagen degrading enzymes and protect us, and we're getting good nutrition, these issues are not an issue. We can stay out in the sun for multiple hours without any severe damage to our skin or burning or whatever else. I mean, so we need to basically get those sort of messages out. Those are credible messages. But when we start falling into this sort of crack pottery, like some people in the sort of carnivore community, it doesn't help anyone. It honestly doesn't help anyone. It makes us look like complete and utter crackpots and idiots, because it is just absolute nonsense. Any person with half a brain would know that, and anybody that basically understands the technology like I do would know that that is just impossible. So, they don't need that. They got cameras. They've got, smart experts systems, AIs that can actually facial recognition and stuff like that, and pattern recognition. I mean, we use it in mapping. What I do is we use this sort of technology to notice differences in the landscapes of different things, of satellite images or whatever else, because we use remote sensing data and stuff like that. So, it's just crazy crack pottery. It's just people that come probably with an arts degree, have no understanding of science, and think just because they saw something on TV, some sci-fi movie, that is basically the X-Files, and that's basically it. What a bunch of fucking cock wombles. That's all I can say. Anyway, let's move on. See, Ulrich says that more he drinks water, the more dehydrated he gets. He says hydration through raw meat and some fruit juices. And your thoughts? Fruit juices aren't going to do it. It's high in deuterium. Fruit juices basically will dehydrate you even more, because anything that's got sugar, like fruit in particular, is high in deuterium. Water, plain water, tap water, is also high in deuterium. So yes, excess water and fruit juice will basically, so part of the message is he's got it, but that's accidental, not because he understands, quantum biology or deuterium depletion. He's got no idea. But in terms of hydration, he's another sort of, one of those extreme ex-vegans, come carny, and now, he's just bringing his cock-womble ideas of flat earth and every other sort of nonsensical stuff across to the carnivore community. I say just fuck off. I say to him, and I've got very little time for people like that. I prefer the people that have come from the low-carb, paleo type communities, which are sensible, which are focused on real scientific vigor in understanding things. I wouldn't waste my breath on Zverij Sosa. Probably a bit good for comedy and probably helps getting some vegans out. That's his own value, but a lot of the stuff that he talks about is complete and utter nonsense. Humans have been eating cooked meat for 1.5 million years, all hominins. We are well adapted. There's not an issue. We've got a low pH. We can deal with anything. So it's just absolute nonsense in that regard as well. That doesn't mean that raw meats are not good. They are. I consume some raw meats. I consume cured meats and stuff like that. Why? Because they have certain beneficial bacteria. Raw meats have enzymes and stuff like that can be beneficial. So there is a place for a lot of things. But when you have these extremist type of ideas, unbalanced and all that, it doesn't help anyone in the long run. And if he's not coping well with something like, cooked meat and all that, I would say, how come you haven't fixed your digestive issues, mate? That's what I would say. Because once you fix your digestive issues, and it's usually by sealing the gut barrier, what's your vitamin D status, mate? I would say as well. Once you deal these things, people go back to normality. People back in the 50s and 60s used to be in the sun, even though they consumed some species inappropriate foods like gluten and other things. less processed garbage, which breaks down this barrier and this protective barrier in the gut. But at the same time, you've got to fix that, and vitamin D plays a big role. And if you're neglecting that because for whatever reason, yes. But to blame cooked meat for that is just ridiculous. It's a bit like people blaming histamine. Histamine is very important. It's even very important for DNA and RNA. So why would you want to suppress homos? Basically these sort of things. Histamines are only a problem if, like LPS, lipopolysaccharides, if they can, that are shed off the pericellular matrix of bacteria, if you've got a leaky gut. And if you've got a leaky gut, what the fuck are you doing not fixing it? With making the adjustments to your gut microbiome and getting the vitamin D that you need. So, yes. Anyway, let's move on. Old boss gives workers cheap energy drinks. Yeah, exactly. Junk. Yes, they still have all these. You go into hospitals, it's absolute ridiculous the amount of soft drinks that are available. Absolutely ridiculous. Oh, yeah. For most people, young people, there is no need for vaccination. If you've got good vitamin D status and you're relatively healthy, no need whatsoever. This sort of nonsense that everybody needs to be fucking vaccinated is an absolute nonsense. I vaccinate for a lot of things. I've got to actually I'll actually do a video and I'll actually show you my vaccine and all the vaccines that I've done. I'm not an anti-vaxxer, believe me. But the thing is, there is a time when you can support certain things, and then there is the ridiculousness, these lockups and all this moronic stuff, when the levels of deaths are very low and they're in the very frail type people or people with comorbidities and stuff like that, and usually that have these underlying issues. And the reality is, even some people have died not because of the vaccine, some of these vaccines, but in particular the mRNA. And it's not because it caused an autoimmunity or anything like that. Yes, it has that potential in some people. But the issue was that is completely ignored by the media, is that it goes in and replicates very similar to the virus. And because it replicates, it may not have the virus may be deactivated, but it's actually replicating in terms of quantity. The body doesn't understand. It's a bit like, I'll give you the example, an analogy. You eat sugar, your insulin goes up. You eat a sweetener, a number of the sweeteners, some of the sweeteners even more than even raw sugar, will actually spike insulin. Because the moment they hit the tongue, they send a message saying shitloads of sugar's coming in. And the body ramps up insulin, an insulin response. Same fucking thing happens with the immune system. It doesn't know that this is basically a man-made version of the virus with deactivated proteins. No, all it knows is there's something replicating and growing in large amounts in my body, and I'm going to fucking take it out. And it basically can potentially give older people cytokine storm and take them out as if they got the virus. So they would have died anyway if they got the virus, or these sort of replicatable RM messenger RNA type vaccines like the Pfizer. They will actually have a similar effect. Like with the sweeteners, same analogy, same sort of situation is happening. That is why I say the more traditional approach, which is basically like the flu vaccine and all that, where you get a small amount, where you get an immune response and the body goes, oop, now I know that. So if it comes across it again, because, 2 months down the track, you get the flu again, it now knows it. It goes, oh, I know that. And it just ramps up all the, antibodies and all that and takes it out before it can really get a foothold. That's what we're supposed to do. So you can either expose yourself with a high level of vitamin D so you don't get that sick, and then you basically have the immunity, or you can take one of these more traditional approaches to building vaccines and get the same effect. It's your choice which way you want to go. If it's free, take it. If it's not, then just keep your vitamin D status up because the sun's free. And then when you get it, you'll just get the immunity. But that's up to you which way to go. If you've got family members that are basically have comorbidities, don't want to give up the sugar. Unfortunately, we do. I have relatives that basically love their carbs. And so that's the sort of stuff I'll push to them. And I say, these are traditionally made in the more traditional way, these vaccines. These are the safer ones. Because I don't know your genetics. You may be one of those unlucky people to have certain genetics and then end up with an autoimmune problem. So this is a safer option where we don't need to do genomics tests on you, which are expensive. So that's the sort of way I approach it. But, yeah, anyway, let's move on. Think logically, Is it possible that testosterone goes down on full, kind of a saw video on YouTube with blood works of carnivore? I think the name was Carnivore Kurt. Don't know the person. There can be so many people. This actually came up earlier in a conversation. I've seen other carnivores have higher testosterone, others have lower testosterone. Testosterone can vary through the day, it can be affected by sleep cycles. Are these people sleeping well? As YouTubers, maybe they're actually staying up late. Circadian rhythms can affect testosterone as well. Vitamin D status, if it's low, can affect. There's actually in the testes, there's vitamin D receptors. Is there vitamin D low? That's another thing that can affect testosterone. So there's a lot of factors beyond just diet. There are other lifestyle things. So you'd have to look at all these factors before you can actually make, because we see even people on a SAD diet. Some people have high testosterone, some people have low testosterone, even on a SAD diet, because they may have maybe people out like, especially they've actually noticed it with people that basically are like lifeguards. They tend to have, and they're on a standard diet, they tend to have very good testosterone levels. I suspect the vitamin D is playing a role there because they're exposing themselves to a lot of vitamin D. So, there are so many factors. So it's not just what you eat, it's other lifestyle and circadian rhythm stuff as well, and vitamin D and a few other things. So, yeah, it's far more complicated in that regard. Yeah, it's a thing that I do want to do. I want to do a video on. I want to do a video on the prostate enzymes that play a role as well, and vitamin D is another player in that. A big player, actually. It is actually the mother of all players in prostate for men. So there's a lot of things. I usually tell people, get your fucking vitamin D up, and a lot of your health problems are going to go away. You won't need people like me, Believe me, you get your vitamin D, a lot of your issues are going to go away. You'll be shocked. I mean, look at Luke Gear, the Brazilian friend, YouTuber friend that it was on the previous one as well. He's on Bart's Discord and all that. He's one of my moderators as well. Nice fellow. And, I encouraged him to slowly move to more carnivorous diet to get those fat-soluble vitamins up and the cholesterol, because you still need cholesterol to produce, just getting out the sun without enough cholesterol, ain't going to do it. And he got his levels right up to 70. I think he said 76. That's it. Which is nanograms per deciliter. So 76. Yep, which is 190 in the nano moles per per milliliter. So yeah. So basically, he got his levels really high up there to 190, which is the metric one, and the other one, the nanograms, which is the one used in North America and a few other places around the world, up to 76. So bloody fucking high. and he's had autoimmunity issues with thyroid issues and stuff like that. You know what? He's feeling great. He hasn't had the test yet to confirm that the antibody issue has gone, but I suspect when he does, we'll find that it's negative. He's feeling fantastic, and he's really happy that he upped his animal foods and his fat-soluble vitamins together with a lot of sunbaking, and he is feeling better than he's felt for a long period of time. And the gut issues have gone away because of the gut permeability. That issue's been resolved as well. Another thing which is really important for autoimmunity, gut permeability, and vitamin D plays a role in locking it up. Most of your immune system is in your gut. So what's the most important vitamin or thing for the immune system? Vitamin D. Again, we neglect these things at our own peril. Let's put it that way. So yes, check your vitamin D, get your vitamin D up, make sure you become a lover of the sun, and the sun will rain health on you forever. As long as you're eating a species-appropriate diet. If you're eating seed oils, you're fucked. You'll be burnt to a crisp. Yes, by that. Yes. Sun giveth and the sun take away if you eat shit. Partly right, I think. Yep. It's a comment. Bit Mills. G'day, Angela. How's it going? Good to see you here. Gargling whiskey, whatever works for you, Richard. If you want to gargle whiskey, go for it, mate. It will lower your viral load. Let's put it that way. Yes. Get things posted in Bart's Discord. It's uncertain, Harry. Just a thought. If you think a link might be risky, don't know, mate. Yeah, I mean, I know that that basically, well, I'm a sort of I think moderator or whatever I am on Bart's Discord. I haven't been on there for ages. I probably should go on there at some point anyway. So I wouldn't have problems getting stuff there. And Bart, we're pretty close as friends, so it'd be a non-issue in that regard. I know Lukey's on there as well. He's one of the administrators with NecroKitty. So yeah, I don't think I'd have any sort of getting stuff sorted. It's just the time getting. It's just this week I actually wanted to do about 3 videos. I never got a chance to do them. I'm going to do them next week. So that puts me a week behind. It's just because I just didn't have damn time. It's just too many other bloody things. One of the guys retired as well. So a whole lot of other things that actually came up as well. And it's just gobbled up all my time. So shit happens. It's just the way it is. Yes. Yes. Looks like I may have to do a video on that. Yes. Maybe if I get a chance next week, I may do it on it. Let's nip it in the bud properly. Because I know you guys, we've done the PUFA stuff. We've done a whole lot of things. Whenever these issues come up, it's unfortunate that a lot of people in the carnivore community just sort of talk about them or blow them away or stuff like that. Nobody actually... I find myself each time having to come back and go, okay, I'm going to do a video on this. I'm not going to sit by and just allow it. It's just the same thing with a histamine issue. I need to do a video on that as well. It's a fucking myth. All this it's like the MTHFR. Oh God, another big fucking toss by the naturopathic doctors. Oh, you need to get your methylfolate up. No, you don't. Yeah, and then they give you a B12 deficiency as a consequence. How fucking brain dead is that? And then on top of that, they don't realize that is clear mechanistic proof. I showed that study when I did riboflavin. What foods are very high in riboflavin? Animal foods and dairy. It fixes the problem. People never had this MTHFR problem in the past until they went vegan, vegetarian, or kibble eating sad dieters. That's when this MTHFR reared its head, because all those people were low on riboflavin. Simple. Let alone pasteurization fucking destroys it and annihilates it from all the dairy foods that are out there. Unless you're consuming raw milk, you're not going to basically get much. And unless you're eating plenty of meat, you're not going to get much either. So no wonder people had these deficiencies. And what did the crackpots say? Oh, one crackpot, the MD said, oh, let's give you a drug for that. And the naturopathic crackpot said, oh, let's give you some supplementation. And let's unbalance you even further. Wonderful. And let's keep you on that roller coaster ride so you can come in and feed me more money. Thank you very much. Yes. As if our ancestors needed a naturopathic doctor to tell them how to naturally live. No. Yeah, Parkinson's and stuff like that. Yeah, if you take if you look at taurine, again, meat, vitamin D, Parkinson's is implicated again in that as well. It's another video that I want to make in the future about Parkinson's disease. A lot of these things are, your B vitamins, your fat-soluble vitamins, your basically vitamin D. It's basically being in the sun and eating an ancestral diet. And a lot of these issues do go away in time. Yes. Drugs do not help. They just make things worse, or they mask the underlying problem. Well, they got no bloody research, these people. They just come up with shit. That's the problem. And when you actually look at the literature, you constantly see this: vitamin D, fat-soluble vitamins, this stuff, that stuff, certain types of proteins and levels of proteins. And you can only have if you've got enough proteins, bioavailable proteins in your diet. And then you go, But, isn't that going to give you a heart attack? No. It's the fucking sugar and the seed oils. But no, we're going to ignore that. It's the meat. It's the meat. Yes. Fucking hell, crackpots unite. Yes. Harry, is there anything we can do to help the body detox heavy metals? Selenium, very good. Selenium is very good in terms of selenide. So foods high in selenium. I did do a bit of a documentary thing. And eggs, liver. Problem with Brazil nuts, yes, they do have, but they can be problematic in terms of anti-nutrients. In that regard, you can also basically use activated charcoal in there as well to bind things because even if selenide will go through and your liver will detox because, and selenium also does help the detoxification pathway. So does taurine, play a big role in cytochrome P450 enzyme in the liver. But at the same time, it will push some of this stuff out through the bile to get rid of it. And as a consequence, you're going to have a bit of activated charcoal there to pick some of that up to prevent a proportion of that being reabsorbed. So it can be slightly drawn out for a period of time. It depends on what your exposure is. It really varies. It's something that I do want to do a proper video on heavy metal detoxification. But things that really help are things like selenium, Don't go too hard on selenium. It does have a toxic level, over 500 micrograms. But, well, even there, it's a bit of a question mark. But at the end of the day, it also needs to be balanced with iodine. A selenium iodine, a major imbalance can be problematic to the thyroid. So it requires both in some level of balance. So do keep that in mind. If you're playing around with selenium, it's a double-edged sword. So you need to find somebody like either Mary or Bart to sort of who do consultancies to sort of coach you appropriately in that regard. So consider that. And you'll probably need to do a number of tests to determine what's happening and sort of and at what rate the chelation is happening and the removal is happening. So it's stuff like that. So it can be a drawn out thing. It will require more, sort of sulfur requirements do also go up a bit. So obviously, if you're getting good levels of taurine, you probably don't need MSM. I primarily used MSM, so I wouldn't actually tax the taurine side of things. And I used MSM primarily to focus on like oxalates and stuff like that, because they do oxalate dumping really goes through a lot of sulfur. So I sort of gave the body the MSM rather than actually depleting my taurine levels or methionine levels or stuff like that, which were more important. So that's, yeah, but if you're dealing with heavy metals, I would say probably taurine is a better thing to basically up as a supplement in that regard as well. So to provide those sulfur groups, yeah. Anyway, let's move on. It's a video that I have to make. I know, I just haven't somewhere in my list of things to do. Yes, exactly. Lily white. Look, generally I've been lily white for a large part of my life. It's only the islanders in Greece that are pretty much, tend to be olive skinned and all that. A lot of them are ancestral, what we call pre-Indo-Europeans that were conquered by the Greek tribes a long time ago, very long time ago. We don't see them as different, but they are part of the Greek family. But yes, the mainlanders, in particular the mountain people, like my parents' background, tend to be exactly that way. And we didn't really burn as a youngster. I had a beautiful tan. I used to race around on my bicycle in Greece with just with shorts on, no top whatsoever, and pretty much. But then again, I was eating more animal foods, and I was lean as, you could see you could see my rib cage. I was just basically used to do a bit of weights as well, a lot of cycling, and yes, looked pretty good. Let's put it that way. But never got burnt because I was on those foods, on good foods. And even before in the 70s, before we went back to Greece for about 6 years, when we had our fish and chip shop and our corner shop, which was a sort of a general store and all that, we used basically dripping, which is basically, from tallow primarily to cook everything. And so, that's what we cooked in animal fats back then. Wasn't an issue. Nobody had a problem or anything like that. It's only when we got back to Australia in the sort of mid-80s that basically, things had changed. The new food guidelines and all the seed oils and crap was out there, and we were told we were reading the wrong way. And we listened to the experts. Unfortunately, the only person that said they were a bunch of wankers was my father. And he was right. I should have listened to my father rather than the pseudoscientists. I probably wouldn't have had the heart condition. But then again, I wouldn't be here, potentially, talking to you lovely people. Oops. Most of my friends are actually got a Pommy ancestry. You know, closest mate is half Dutch, Indonesian on his father's side, and he's like a brother, you know. And on his mother's side, she's from somewhere in the Midlands or somewhere in the centre of sort of England. Trying to remember where, but anyway, it'll come to me. So yeah, a lot of my early friends as well at school pretty much had a Pommy ancestry or background. Yes, lovely people. Britain hit 36 degrees last year. We have to be careful on that one day a year. Yes. Tasmania's a bit like that as well. You know, I mean, at the moment it's like 20, 22, 24. It's very a mild summery. But then it sort of will plummet, you know, to something like 18 or something crazy like that, and it just goes up. And then we'll have like a couple of days in the summer that'll just go over 30, and there'll be the rare exception where it will hit something like, you know, 36, 37 or whatever. We've had only one day this summer that has been around that level. So maybe we'll get another one next month. Sometimes we do get a few really hot days, but it'd be interesting to see whether that happens. Anyway, men can address an enlarged prostate, no cancer, but 2 times, 15 months carnivore, insulin resistance is improving, lost 35 kilograms over 14 months. Very good, done very well in that regard. Look, prostate enlargement is just really a vitamin D deficiency. You can get enough retinol, because retinol does play a secondary role, but if you're eating any animal foods, you're going to get some level of retinol. Problem is vitamin D plays a big role. Actually, the funny thing also is those enzymes that can regulate breast tissue growth, in particular, they do play a role when, and that has an effect on the mother's milk quantity that actually is produced, and also making them susceptible to, you know, unusual growth patterns. Again, those enzymatics and transcripted factors that are actually controlled by genes are, again, vitamin D dependent. You know, this is why in the past, you know, sort of things like prostate cancer and breast cancer were far rare. It usually was amongst the more wealthier people that were indoors, not doing the dirty work outdoors like the common people. Amongst the common people, it was very rare. Now it's common. Why? Because they're indoors, either watching TV or basically, you know, working indoors in a factory or in an office. Yep, vitamin D again. Oops. What do you think about sourdough bread? The traditional Swiss people also ate some besides cheese, milk, meat, like Weston Price described in his book. Yes, they did, and so did the Greeks. It was called Zea bread, which has about a tenth of the gluten. And the other thing is, and that is of the traditional bread, a tenth, and a lot of the actual breads are traditional breads. I mean, the only place where there was still, because in Greece it sort of declined after the 20s, because there were commercial pressures to get rid of it, because there was, yeah, anyway, it's a long story. I've talked about it before, but Germany, it was our source of getting it back. So we got the old Zea bread varieties back from Germany, because it nearly vanished out of Greece. There was a few areas like villages, but commercially to be brought back, it had to be brought back from Germany. It just tells you a lot how much we lost our way in Greece when it comes to the traditional bread making methods. When it had a tenth of the old, this is the non-hybridized varieties. The modern hybridized varieties are very high in gluten. The old non-hybridized, but even gluten, unless you've got a celiac disease, a specific genetic issue, if you do not have gut permeability, it's probably not going to really cause a lot of problems. The only issue with any carbohydrate, if you're basically not, if you're getting too many calories of mixed macros potentially, and you're not physically active sufficiently, you have the tendency of engaging the Randall cycle, and that creates a sort of level of inflammation and insulin resistance, and that has negative connotations and effects on your body the longer that is engaged. So, and it's a food that, in terms of nutrition, isn't that crash hot. It's a filler. But the traditional methods did actually provide more nutrition. That's true. The traditional method of basically fermenting it reduced substantially the anti-nutrients, and also doubled the bioavailability of a lot of the minerals, because it broke down a lot of the chelating factors. So it wasn't, in terms of micronutrients, it was pretty good, particularly in those mountainous areas where they recycled a lot of the minerals. So the minerals would get washed down, and they would dig those minerals and literally bring them back up to those beds, where they actually grew the stuff. So these foods were high in micronutrients, and as a consequence, when you've got sufficient cofactors, basically your metabolism of these foods improves. So that's another factor. If you can process something and break it down appropriately with the enzymes that are needed, and then oxidize it appropriately, and you're physically active, it's probably going to be less of a problem, in that regard. So these populations did consume some, but not a lot. Even my father did. As a youngster, his mother would cut him a slice, and it was very hard. After a couple of days, you'd get just a slice, because, you've got to go back to the times like in the 1930s and 1940s. I mean, my father's been around for a while, 86. He said there wasn't much bread around. It was expensive. You basically got a loaf for a week, and you got a small slice, and your mother would put on that some lard, and then or some butter, and then throw a heap of dairy cheese on it, and that would be your breakfast. So then you'd be off to school. So it's very different compared to somebody sitting down and eating half one of those big, nice, fluffy breads, and literally consuming half of it, because that's what people do nowadays. Or having the small amount of rice that people had back then and did a lot of physical activity and used the glycogen. And now somebody having a big bowl of rice this big and sitting in front of the TV all day. It's a substantial difference, and we need to note that, the Randall cycle is very important. If you're depleting and using that as glycogen, you're not going to create the problem. If that goes into the muscles as glycogen and goes into the liver as glycogen, because it's just repleting, there's not going to be a lot of circulating sugar in the bloodstream, which basically means you're not going to be engaging the Randall cycle, because you're not going to hit that threshold. So those traditional populations never did. So was it optimal, the food, compared to a carnivore diet clearly like the one that the Inuit were? No. That's why the Inuit never had cardiovascular disease or cancer. They didn't even have words for those things, even though they were smokers. But I can tell you, the populations in the in the Swiss Alps and all that, there still were some level of cancer and some level, of those sort of diseases. Very little, but still was there, which shows that they weren't on an ideally optimal diet. Much better than what the SAD diet is. But, it just tells you that. And we know that when you consume these foods in large amounts, it's a problem. Go to any archaeologist and ask them one simple question. How do you distinguish between a tribal population and an agriculturalist population? And they will tell you iron deficiency. We notice these little spots of white spots on the actual cranium of the actual, the skull of the human. There's little white blotches and all that. And that is iron deficiency due to too much consumption of grains, breads, that sort of stuff. Especially you see it in basically populations like in that have been big grain consumers. People that were living in the mountains and all that were very small consumers, like my father was in the mountainous areas. It was basically like a treat. Very little. So, and even today, Greeks still use bread, small amounts to soak up, like the sauces and stuff like that. It's used in a very different way, in a very culturally different way. People don't sit there just eating a whole lot of bread. We just don't do it. So it's a very different style, unless you're a Greek that lives in Australia or in America and has lost that traditional way of eating and just eats kibble like everyone else. Yep. So it has to be nuanced, and when we don't view the nuance, then we don't understand why at that point in time in history small amounts could be okay, not optimal but okay, but now definitely not, because our lifestyle is so toxic in general in a number of different ways. Definitely, if your gut's damaged, definitely not a good idea. Definitely not a good idea. Those things like lectins and glutens and all that sort of stuff, they will go through and lodge in different tissues and create over time a number of different things like autoimmunity. They're called thyroid issues, Hashimoto's. They're called arthritis. They're called, these sort of lovely names, and they are all autoimmune conditions due to a certain level of leaky gutness. Yes. And obviously neglecting our vitamin D status. Yes, very much. With coffee. Nice one. Actually, I've got an organic cola, which is very low in sugar. It does have a bit of sugar, but weekends I do have treats. I do cheat a bit. It's kombucha as well. I'm into these sort of fucking kombuchas. So it's all these sort of things. Like I get some of the other kombuchas, which is about 0.2 per serving of grams of sugar or whatever. This has got a few extras, but it's quite nice and refreshing. It's more like the traditional sort of cola, which wasn't sweet. It had that tartiness to it. It's nice. So, yes, it's still a processed food. It's not an optimal food. Let's be honest about it. But it's, one of my cheats, less egregious cheats in that regard. But, yeah. Little issue I had very little issues digesting homemade bread using dough, often fermented in the fridge for several days. Yeah, that can help. That can take a lot of the anti-nutrients down. Dad used to do that. He's cut bread altogether. I've convinced him it's a waste of time. He used to make his own homemade bread, but only seasonally. It was a very strange. Dad didn't make it all year round or have it all year round, but seasonally he made it. Sort of going back to that tradition. And I go, what are you doing? Oh, well, we used to do it like this. I go, do you really need to do it now? And then eventually he's seen how much I've improved, and goes, well, I don't really need it, do I? And I go, well, it's got nothing, no nutrition. If you have the equivalent as a steak, you're going to get more nutrition, Dad. So why waste your time, your energy, and all the actual effort and hassle and all that? And he goes, yeah, it's not worth it. And all it does is, unfortunately, it does drive that little addiction. We live in a very hostile food environment. Those people didn't. You know, their parents would not allow the kids to basically have any snacks. You know, you were told only 3 meals or 2 meals or whatever. No damn snacking in between and all that, your meals. And the other thing is, you know, the amount of these things that parents would give you would be a small amount. You know, it's like the old days in Asia, a bit of meat, a bit of, rice, and a bit of basically, small type of cooked vegetables or stuff like that. That was basically it. A bit of chili. You know, these are the sort of traditional foods that a lot of Southeast Asians consumed in small amounts, and they did shitloads of physical work. So completely different food environment, completely different lifestyle. We very much need to keep these things away, because our environment and our lifestyle is very different to the people that have passed. They were very physical. I mean, I look at my muscles, and my father had big, massive muscles, like double my muscles at that age. He was just massive, built like a shipwreck house. He was just a monster. He could just literally grab, I mean, we, like us as kids, could jump on him and try to pull his hand, and it was just like rock solid. It was just ridiculous. Because he was a Boilermaker welder originally before he got into small business. But he was just solid. You could pull and lift whole pipes. I mean, that sort of strength comes from physicality. You're not going to get it. That's a completely different ball game when you look at people like that. And it is not going to happen in the way we live today. So we've got to be very careful, because very easy the slippery slope, or because the food environment is so damn toxic. Hello, Jay. Now that's good if they're doing it for 3 days. Yeah, that is good. But I haven't had bread. God, I can't remember. It's been a very long time. Let's put it that way. And I don't miss it. Honestly, I just do not damn miss it. At the time, I thought, that I'd miss something like that, but not really. Not at all. What's that one of Blinky's? What is Blinky? You have another one that I missed? I haven't been paying attention, Blinky. I better get my act together. In that regard. And what was the other one? There's one down here you've got. Okay, you got the disc. That's just the Discord. Okay. And oops, nothing else there. Okay, good. Let's put that on the screen. And share. Sharing is caring. Oh, there it is. I've finally found it after 15 years. The scroll of truth. Ta-da! We want Roy. Thanks, Blinky. I told you. Oh, you do want Roy. Set Tom. Yeah, he's coming, mate. He's coming. He's coming. Let me just shut my eyes as I transition to Roy. Harry's gone. G'day, boys. It's Roy. G'day, Blinky. Good to see you, mate. Yep, yeah, get rid of that guy. Yep, definitely. I'm here, mate. I'm here for you. Let's move on, boys and girls. Thanks for the intro, Blinky. And rapidly moving through this sort of stuff. Yeah, it is free to join Bart's Discord. Yep, it is. Get on there if you want to socialise with a whole lot of other carnies and bigots. You'll have a good time. Yips. And DJ Projectus heard about the brain barrier permeability. What are your thoughts on what if some time with gut permeability? Yes, it is very much related. So fixing gut permeability eliminates a lot of shit out of your bloodstream, potentially getting into your brain and doing naughty things. So yes. So yeah, again, it all comes back to vitamin D again. It's that fucking vitamin D. It's that damn sun. I've been telling you this. That sun is a sun that never is unrelenting and tries to push itself around. Its rays around. Yes. You know, it's the Roy rays that are so beneficial to you people, lovely people. Yes, now that we got rid of that Harry guy. What is a Discord? Yes, it's like a forum in a sense where people can come together and chat amongst themselves in a sort of like a private meeting area. And they can share different documents and stuff like that, little videos, images, all sorts of things. So, yes, a bit of banter here and there on different subject matters. Yes. And Lukey and NecroKitty basically will still, I believe, the main administrator moderators that keep sort of an eye on the rest of you rabble, keep you under control, and moderate your bigotry. Anyway, let's move on. Yes, yeah, it is a bit like, that's true. Yeah, it's a bit like Reddit. Yeah, it is. I do spend occasional times on Reddit with my other, I don't actually use my real name while I'm there. I basically use a different alias sort of thing. I do have an alias also for Twitter as well. So, yes. It's when I can actually unleash a bit more without actually having to worry about it. Oh, yes, so very much. Yes, when things get into the bloodstream, they can get anywhere and everywhere, which is a problem. Yes, it is. And as Melina has pointed out, a very big problem for many people. Our biggest problem is in the 1970s, 80s, around that period of time. One, we changed our diet radically and got rid of a lot of the very important and healthy animal foods that gave us the fat-soluble vitamins, these important things for our collagen in our body. Remember, your gut is made largely of collagen. And then we got rid of the important sun therapeutic effects of the sun and its importance in so many biological processes, including sorting out the gut permeability. And we wondered why autoimmunity and diverticulitis and all these other bloody health issues relating to the gut went through the roof. I wonder why. Shock horror. Yes. It's surprising how many people, when they say get rid of the seed oils, the sugars, get some of the animal foods in and get out into the fucking sun, how much their health becomes better. It's, as I said, humans can, if you give the right food and provide the human body with the environment that it needs, the sun, the clean environment, the earthing, all these sort of things, when you bring the body back to a sort of a more natural type of rhythm and relationship with this planet, you know what? A lot of things heal and a lot of things sort themselves out. And, beyond, the occasional issue where you may get injured and you need a bit of surgical intervention to be stitched up so you don't bleed to death, you can basically live very, very healthy with no problems. Like one of those islanders who eat their traditional diet on Ikaria, in those mountains, those villages. They don't need doctors. They just got the lifestyle that basically keeps them healthy into old age. They don't need a naturopath. They don't need yoga. They don't need Pilates. They don't need any of this sort of stuff. They just need natural movements in the sun, eating animal foods. And they're fucking healthy and live very long lives. Yes. Shock horror. Yes. Yes. Unfortunately, the modern man and woman needs their Pilates, their yoga, their other nonsensical things, plus a whole lot of other moronic things, plus an entire shelf, or let's say a pantry full of supplements, expensive supplements. Yes. Wonderful how where we've, and still they're less healthy than these people that are basically on these damn fucking islands living that simple life, tending to their animals and being in the sun all day. It's so funny. If it wasn't so bad in a sense. Yes. Don't know whether to laugh or cry about the way we've degenerated. Anyway. Oh, how nice. How nice. Yes, because for me, my mission, after I sort of dealt with my health issues, is to try and get you people to basically realize that, you don't need people like me. Really, you don't. People like me can be helpful. One, we can be entertaining. Two, we can help provide information to help you guys, do the transition. But what you really need to do is improve your relationship with this planet, because our relationship is dysfunctional on so many levels. And that is why we're suffering, So anyway. And that's the reason why I'm just out there giving the good message. I don't need your money, guys. Honestly, I make enough money. I live comfortable. I live a good life. I don't have any problems. I'm not off the Somali coast dodging bullets. I am not in any way struggling or that. I found my way back to good health, and life's not bad. I've got good friends, you know, got people that love me and I love them, you know, so I'll tell you, it's the way to be. What I'm trying to do is because I have suffered, and I just want you guys to get, you know, some of my insights into this sort of stuff and help you guys avoid the mistakes that I made, because we all fucking make mistakes. None of us are perfect. We're only a bunch of moronic apes that have a bit more knowledge than maybe the previous generation, or, you know, maybe some of the other. But we're still, you know, we're not gods. And what we can do is share our experiences, our knowledge and stuff like that, and try and help each other. So to alleviate human suffering. Let me say that again, human suffering. Yes, because we are not misanthropists. We love humanity and we love our species. And g'day, Dom. Good to see you, mate. UK companies putting out yellow cards. Reports on vaccines. Reports 22nd of Feb said there were 77,207 adverse reactions to the mRNA vaccine with blood, vascular, respiratory disorders, plus many others. Well, the reality is, unless you look at these are just general. We shouldn't be panicking about this sort of stuff. There's going to be some people that are going to have some autoimmune related issues. We know that these mRNA do have those issues. Not everyone. It's a small group. Let's not over-exaggerate things. They're not the best version. And there are risks in terms of people who've got comorbidities or in those more risk groups, Bert, that potentially could get these higher overreactions of their immune system. Not a good thing. It's no different than getting the virus. If you're a frail person and you get the virus, you will have a cytokine storm because most of these people are in, you know, they're not in the best of conditions. And the same thing when you get one of these that replicates, and that's the problem. This vaccine replicates. It creates a bigger viral load, even though it's deactivated. The problem is the viral load, which over-exaggerates the immune response. That's the problem. Small viral load of a more traditional form, like the Noravax, is less of an issue. It's more like the flu vax that basically just elicits a small little response and doesn't cause big problems. The problem is with these ones, and they're expensive. Fucking hell, you know, they cost hundreds and hundreds of bloody dollars, some of these bloody things. Pfizer's just trying to basically make back the money that they invested in the mRNA research into cancer, and it basically didn't pan out because it's a metabolic disease, cancer. It's not fucking something you can deal with some sort of hodgepodge hack that they were hoping through this mRNA method. It failed miserably, and now they're trying to recoup their losses through the corona thing, and they don't give a shit how many people die who are more frail and more vulnerable to mild cytokine effects, because they just want to get back their money. So yes, that's the problem. You know, we'll find out this in the wash as the research looks in this, though they will conclude at a later stage. These studies would have happened if we didn't rush things. You know, governments have sort of rushed because of the economic imperatives and stuff like that. And as a consequence, they've ignored a whole lot of other things like vitamin D deficiencies in the population. And there's good evidence to show that is an issue, but they've ignored it. And as a consequence, we are where we are. And we've got a whole bunch of bean counters and lawyers who've got no idea about this stuff, and they shouldn't, because that's not what they specialize on, being advised by people who have close associations with drug companies and are basically manipulating these politicians to undertake policies which will benefit certain groups within the elites. That's why we're being screwed. Nothing new. Oh, yes, yes. I know you look forward to Roy appearing. Yes, we're good to see the back of that hairy bloke. Richard, yes, it is the Roy hour, so I hope you're being entertained. Yes, nice morning here, walking morning sun instead of looking at Harry. I'm glad you're enjoying the sun, Angela. Yes, yes, basically. Good to see the back of that Harry bloke. Yep, Roy's here. Yes, the sun of your life. Yes, I ray out orangey. Yes. Nearly said something inappropriate, but I did hold back at the end there. I'll let your mind ponder that. Nearly slip up. Oh, let's move on. Anyway, I saw a video from Ivor. Yeah, great bloke. The guy is selling MK4. It's MK7. Is that a supplement? No, MK. Yeah. Nah, MK7 can't even be converted by a third of the population. It's a waste of time, you know. So, look, Ivor's not really up to date on the sort of the menaquinones and stuff like that, and the genetics and stuff like that. So, look, I don't blame Ivor. He's a strong proponent of vitamin K2, which is good. We do need people in our community and beyond that are promoting, but we need to be cognizant that some people in the low carb, keto, paleo type and carnivore communities are less than up to date on the menaquinones. I had to look into them in a very detailed way and see exactly how they worked. And so, because of my cardiovascular issues, simple as that. So I realized very quickly that the way the menaquinone 4, the actual protein structure had an additional hook that actually could chelate and grab from soft tissue, calcification, and pull it out of soft tissue, where the other menaquinones couldn't do the same job. So obviously, since then, I've learned more about how it acts more like even directly on genes where the other menaquinones don't. So it has a direct effect on the genome. So it can go in and interact with the DNA. The other menaquinones can't do that. So only this animal form can do that. So there's a whole lot. There's more to do on menaquinone 4. There will be more in the future, guys. But at this stage, you can only do so much when you've got a fucking day job. So until a point comes when I've got more time, yep, I'll probably do more. But what do I do? That was a bit of a bugger up. Get that out of the way. And why has that frozen? Where? I've got my YouTube thing out here. It's actually, for some reason, frozen. Yep. Just. Okay, that's now working properly again. Okay. For a moment there, it's got itself in a bit of a freezy movement. We'll pop out to the beach when I finish taking my vitamin H. Good for you. Hello, Mandy. Good to see you. Yes, we're talking about that vitamin D, how important that is for our bodies. And with the COVID and many other things out there that are potential risk problems. Yes. Yes, yes. It should have been vitamin R for Roy. Get it right. Yeah, well, T1 ponders a lot. Blinky has, it's like, it takes a while for the gears to kick in. It's the way, this is why he needs a bit of training when it comes to actually proper trolling. He needs to be quick on the mark. Trolling requires that quick on the mark response and all that. If you're going to do it right. I just usually troll myself. Well, vitamin R is better. So true, Blinky. So true. G'day, Bo. Oh, yeah, Harry. Oh, it's Roy. Get it right, Bo. Get it right. Everyone just popped in to say hello. I'm going to try and fall asleep through on purpose, Harry. Not to suggest that you are boring or sleep-inducing. Actually, one of my friends said, "Oh, you're sleep-inducing." I'm going, "Oh, how wonderful of you to say that." Yes, yes. Friends don't say that. They always want to drag you down to their level. Just to remind you, you're not something special. Yes. Bart uses his TED persona, or the TED Bart, crazy show, the Lord Marshal and Ted the Bigot, and I might as well use the Harry and Roy show. Why the fuck not? You got to have a bit of fun, even when you're talking serious stuff, don't you, Mandy? Yes, exactly. Even when you're talking about serious stuff, you got to be lighthearted about it. We tend to be far too serious, take life too serious and too many things. Okay, so you're in the sort of the Midlands of England. Okay, yes. I just can't remember the area that his mother's from. Yes. New Zealand, yes, you guys can get quite cold. Yeah, our temperature at the moment is just around the 22. It was supposed to be 24-ish or whatever. So, well, it was earlier a bit warmer when I went out in the. So, me and my friend, that she knocked on the door, and because she doesn't know where to go to that butcher, so we went together to get. So I got some burgers and stuff like that, and they're all very much made in the more traditional way, and all their sausages. I got some Italian-based sausages, which are basically all with the the proper intestines and stuff like that. They get awards. They do them in the traditional way, which is really nice. The West Hobart Butchers, they're open even on Sundays up until 4 o'clock. So I popped around there, picked up some stuff, then popped around to say hello to Dad, and then popped back here to cook up a couple of the burgers. And I had 2 beautiful burgers, a bit of brie at about 4:30-ish. So that was nice, and that was basically my meal for the day. I wasn't that hungry. Absolutely had nothing else. I had no milk today. I've had no coffee today. I've really haven't really been that hungry at all. And I'm just sort of having these colas and a bit of water, but that's about it. It's just basically we had a bit of because my brother Sean, his sister come down from the interstate, so we had a bit of a barbecue, so sort of a family get together with some close people that knew the family, and I'm sort of considered like a family member. So we all turned up, had a bit of a you know, quite a bit of meat. So yeah, got stuck into quite a bit of meat, a bit of other things, a bit of conversation, which was interesting. Yeah, it was talking to his brother-in-law was really interesting. So Ed had a few things to say about some of the people, vegans that he's come across and people like that. So he's an accountant, so he's got this big accounting firm and all that over there. But certain people, even wealthy individuals that he interacts with, are sort of in that way inclined or whatever. And so interesting conversations, let's put it that way, with these people. But as I said to him, I gave him a few pointers about, the sort of the moral sort of side where you derive your morality, because these people, it usually just busts their whole argument. Once you ask them where they derive their morality, they don't really have an answer to that. Because if it's subjective and it's an atheistic one, well, it's just subjective. Why is theirs better than yours? What makes them better, their moral sort of position. So I gave him a few pointers, let's put it that way. Next time he gets assaulted by, so, and he's got a sort of Hungarian background, so they love meat, and the last thing he doesn't want to do is give that good nutrition up. Why would you? But it's just the reality of this world nowadays. Why did I do this again? I did this in the morning. I actually basically scrolled while I had the damn thing over, and I lost my spot. Because this doesn't move like in StreamYard and all that. You have to physically do it yourself, and I bloody did it myself just now. How fucking stupid of me. Okay, found the spot. Oh, God. And there's a Discord thing. Actually, does that, let me just see. Let me just, if I hit that, can I actually pin that? No, I can't pin it. Okay, that's one thing that, because in StreamYard, you can actually pin it at the top. This will not allow to pin. Well, that's strange. Well, you can't do that. It's weird. Okay, they just don't have that capacity. Let me see. I'll do it on the other. Okay, let's just go up here. Let's. Hold on. Let me just see if is that the right one. Yep, that's Bart's. Okay, let me just. Blinky's got. Is this different? Is that a different connection or anyway? Oh, for freaking hell! Why isn't that? Try again. God Almighty! It's gone funny for some reason. Yeah, I know it's amateur time, Blinky. Yep, well aware of it. And pin that at the top. Okay, so that's now pinned, and that's the Discord, Bart's Discord. So that now for anyone who wants that sort of link. Yep, it's right there. Good. Done and dusted. And now get back to the regular stuff. Okay. And what's Blink got here? Oh, I better share that. Oh, you probably won't have got sick if you have taken your weekly vitamin H. Just saying. Oh, thank you, Blinky. He likes to take his dose on a regular basis. So nice of him. Not a problem. And now it's linked right at the top for everyone to see. So yeah, if you need to access it. Yes, I was hoping that Bart would make another appearance today, but probably got caught up with other things. Well, it can be it usually is a gut microbiome issue. That's what it is. So it can be certain pathogenic bacteria can cause problems. Sometimes there are certain types of bacteria that can actually, the way they actually deal with dairy products as well, can be an issue. So when you cut the dairy out, the constipation goes away. But when you fix your gut microbiome, then you can reintroduce dairy without a problem. It's usually basically a gut microbiome issue and not being able to correctly deal with some of the dairy components, which becomes a sort of an issue in that regard. It seems that that's the case when people resolve their gut microbiome issue. It usually goes away, and it usually goes away when you get sufficient vitamin D in it. So when you've got enough fat-soluble vitamins, vitamin D, and you've got the MK4 in there and stuff like that, plus the B50 vitamin, B50s for about 3 months. You do that, and a lot of things resolve in that regard. There's also Metaflor. Check my videos. There's a Metaflor, which is a German bacterial strain which protects you against dysentery and a whole lot of other things, pathogenic-wise, but also it also reduces issues of constipation. So that's has another value to it. So yeah, it is usually a gut microbiome issue, imbalance and stuff like that. Usually when you resolve it, those sort of issues go away. It can be also some people may not be hydrating enough, and sometimes not getting enough salt as well. Salt does help with peristalsis as well, so that's another issue. So there's a lot of, can be complicated. So are you salting enough? Are you getting enough water in when you need it? Are you hydrating with enough fat? If it's not warm enough, so, and better to hydrate with fat than too much water as well. So there's a lot of issues, but the big one is definitely the gut microbiome underlying issues that usually cause a lot of these problems in that regard. We know with Necro Kitty, she used to have a lot of the opposite stuff, and then when she got rid of a lot of the gut pathogenic stuff that was causing a lot of the diarrhea effects, and we eliminated those with the Lactobacillus reuteri, those 2 specific strains from Sweden. It sorted out the problem, but it actually then caused the opposite because she didn't have the other gut microbiome sufficient to help with the peristalsis, and it also sort of induced a sort of a constipation on her. So, usually I recommend both together, but the way I did my videos probably didn't help, to be honest. It probably should have done the B50 and the other stuff and the vitamin D first, and then throw in the reuteri as a complementary thing to that. So it was sort of done back to front. So that's probably another oversight on my part. And I didn't actually emphasize enough the Metaflora one as well and its role. So that's another sort of just a short-sightedness on my side. Sometimes I'm just, you're a YouTuber, you've got a day job, you don't have enough time, and just what you've got at hand, you just push out. It's a sort of stuff. But these things are coming in the next month, so I will be focusing on a lot of this sort of stuff, the gut-related stuff, the vitamin D gut-related stuff, and a whole lot of other things. Too many people are suffering from these issues, and they need to be resolved or sorted some way or another, where people have got options and ways to deal with them, where they can get back to having normal, plain old sort of those middle of the type, soft shit, so to speak. Not too soft, but you know what I mean. The sort of regular stuff, you just take out a bit and that's about it. Like I had today. So I know what you mean, because a lot of the actual stuff that's actually intertwined with a lot of those species is also bacteria. And certain bacteria can also affect the moisture content of stools as well. So it's a bit complicated. And yeah, those videos are coming that will go into some of the details and looking at a number of bacterial strains that can be combined and some methods to try and bring back some of those beneficial stuff. Really important to realize vitamin D, again, these beneficial bacteria tend to like more vitamin D than some of the others. So you want them back, get your vitamin D status up again. All these gut issues, all these gut permeability issues, all this sort of stuff that's happened in the last couple of decades isn't accidental. It's because we've given away important nutrients, animal-based nutrients, and we're avoiding the sun due to a misunderstanding of what causes skin cancer. Cancer is a metabolic disease. It's when you're eating inappropriate things, you make yourself more vulnerable. When you incorporate toxic seed oils into your skin membranes, well, those fats are going to be much more vulnerable to oxidation. So yeah, we got it back to front on a lot of fronts, and we avoided the sun and stopped eating the foods that basically provided us with the best of health. In the short term, give dairy, even if you're lactose persistent like me, give dairy a miss and just focus on eating meats for now on until those videos come out, and you'll have much more regularity in that regard. And then you can go on the protocol and sort those things out. But I would recommend getting your D levels up. Oops. And the other thing on that, with the gut microbiome, I am researching a number of strains that we can use for better. There's another one that I actually haven't talked about. It's Lactobacillus rhamnosus, but a specific type strain. Jarrow actually puts the supplement out, and it's a specific type that also has a lot of important benefits in a number of things in terms of a lot of the IBS related stuff. I've used it in the past. So yeah, really good in that regard as well. So there's a couple of those things. It has to be sort of strategic strains and then try to build your own original gut microbiome stuff back in that regard. Yep. Anyway, what is Blinky saying? Oh. Harry's finished, mate, not Roy. You don't have to worry. Don't distress yourself. We're getting rid of that guy. What are you worried about? Get with the program. From clearly atherosclerosis perspective, vitamin E tocopherol needed. I am currently taking tocotrienol. You need a bit, but not a lot of tocopherol. You need more tocotrienol. And the Jarrow, low dose Jarrow, do not take a high dose. Take a low dose, and that is the Jarrow one, which comes from palm oil derived, and it's well balanced. It's a vitamin E complex. So, or you can just buy some palm oil and have a spoonful now and then. It's up to you. But we do not normally need this amount of vitamin E on a regular carnivore diet. If you grow as a youngster into a carnivore diet like an Inuit family or a Maasai family or whatever and live most of your life on that, we don't need a lot. Why? Because we upregulate glutathione. Our intracellular antioxidant called glutathione is an electron donor to both vitamin E and vitamin C. That is why we don't need a lot. We use uric acid directly as as an antioxidant in our system. So we don't require the only time uric acid becomes a problem is when it gets deranged. The urea cycle gets deranged because of fructose and insulin resistance. So when you do have these sort of situations, yes, they go out of whack. But generally speaking, if you're not insulin resistant and your glucose isn't high, I can tell you your glutathione will be very high. And as a consequence, it will refresh both your vitamin E and your vitamin C. So the small amounts you get from animal products will be refreshed. So you require zilch as a supplement. But if you're coming off a SAD diet or you've got underlying health problems like I did, you still will, and you've consumed a lot of seed oils. So you haven't been basically an Inuit or a Maasai, you've been a SAD dieter for most of your life, you will have incorporated into your cell membranes shitloads of this nasty, rancid crap, and in your fat cells, shitloads of this nasty, rancid, toxic shit. So when you release those free fatty acids of this toxic mildew of shit, you will cause yourself some level of inflammation and problems. Under those circumstances, you do need a low dose vitamin E for the next 4 to 7 years to sort all that shit out. That's why, so you can't deal with a smaller dose. You don't need vitamin C because vitamin C doesn't play that role. So you don't have to worry about that side. Vitamin E is the key player here when it's dealing with lipid peroxidation issues. So, and we need good levels of glutathione being in a more ketotic or low carb state to basically refresh those stuff. But we still need more. And the reason is because we've got more shit that we are releasing and more shit that is damaged that needs to be sorted. And that's the only reason. But if you were born into a Maasai family or an Inuit family and had a very clean diet for most of your life, you probably don't need it. But the majority of us weren't. We were all fucking children of the SAD kibble diet. and have plenty of issues to deal with. So yes, it is an advisable thing to do to deal with any stored toxic PUFA that is damaged. You need to basically provide sufficient electron donors to basically reduce their reactivity in your body. Simple as that. It's not complex. So, yeah, the Jarrow stuff, I've talked about it heaps of times. You can find on iHerb, you can find on Amazon, you can find on a number of different sites. Just take your choice, price, postage and handling, whatever. Those issues, just Google and you will find the Jarrow. And I usually say just Toco, TOCO, Jarrow, and it usually brings it up in a search engine. Anyway, yes, always amusing on this channel, Dom. Yes, always. Hehe. Yep, he did in his early streams. Oh, yes, I do a lot of things in my early streams. Yes, I always entertain in one way or another. Yes. Oh, let's get it right. You mean that Harry bloke. God. What's Harry bloke more, Blinky, what have you been fucking saying out there about Roy? Fucking hell, Blinky. You should be popularizing Roy, not Harry. What is wrong with you? You know what? I'll take that spanner and stick it up where the sun doesn't shine if you don't get your act together. Remember, Roy is king. Get your act together, Blinky. Would love to see a written anti-CBD protocol including citrulline. Definitely. Citrulline is one of my favorite supplements. Is that white stuff around the where it's concentrated around the watermelon. Yes, not the red stuff, the sugary stuff, the white stuff. There's plenty of citrulline in that, and yes, the good thing about citrulline is it gets directly into the bloodstream. It sort of bypasses largely the liver, and so it doesn't. The arginine component, when it converts in the bloodstream into arginine, gives you a nitric oxide boost, which is really good for vasodilation, and just as good as Viagra without the side effects. And I can confirm that. So yes, we won't say any more before we incriminate ourselves. But yeah, and lowers blood pressure as well. So it has a lot of benefits. Taurine also has that effect on blood pressure. If you're taking a number of these things that have the ability to lower blood pressure, you've got to be a bit careful to step yourself and allow the body to adjust. Don't go too hard, too strong. It's not a sprint. It's a much slower pace of just getting your body to adjust. Yes, definitely. Citrulline will definitely be in there. Don't you worry about that. Including MK4, very important, minoquinones, but in much higher doses, but in a low inflammatory environment. We don't want to be dragging. But at the end of the day, the body will not. What I've found out recently is more and a better understanding of MK4 is that it can be slightly inhibited by the body if there's inflammation around. So it can't actually pull out a lot of calcium out, which is a good thing because you want calcium to stabilize in an inflammatory environment. But in a low inflammatory environment, when you clear your fucking diet up and stuff like that in your lifestyle, then yeah, you don't want to take higher doses. It's going to be used, and you want to get that stuff out of those, out of the soft tissue. Out of your kidneys, out of your heart, out of your, liver, out of your number different organs. and they will work better. When they are, highly decalcified, they will work better. Yes, magically better. And the taurine helps quite a lot in breaking down and getting rid of a lot of that fibrotic tissue, like I did with my heart, which had fibrotic tissue damaged, and now it doesn't have any, which is great. That's what was confirmed from the last scan, and any future scan will confirm the same thing, which is great. So very important. So all these things, beta amyloid in the brain, yep, another thing that clears out. Taurine even breaks down histamine. Oh, who would have guessed? Yes. So yeah, very important to get it in your diet, especially if you're in your mid-50s like myself and getting older. In 10 years' time from now, the taurine biosynthesis endogenously inside my body will basically take a fucking nosedive, because it does after 65. And I will up my dose from my 3 grams now to 5 grams. Yes, definitely. I probably don't need to be as high as 3, to be completely honest. It's more as like a security blanket on my side, Let's make sure we keep any sort of fibrotic tissue down as much as possible. The beta amyloid is down as well. I want my brain to be squeaky clean as I get older. So there's a lot of reasons. Don't want to lose my marbles. Want things to work better, things like that. But normally you wouldn't probably need at this age bracket that amount, because you're still producing some in that regard. It's more of a security thing for me. But I would definitely take it up to 5 when I get around the mid-60s, probably a bit earlier than that, probably just after 60 or whatever. So at about 5-6 years from now. Yeah. So, but by then, I may have a more deeper understanding and be able to nuance that a bit better. So I'm always looking at things in some depth, trying to understand things a bit better. Yeah, it's always, you can understand things in a deeper way. Yes. Are you serious, Angela? God. Did you pay her? Or how did you manipulate her to think that of you? Oh, God. Oh, you're actually, okay. Fair enough. Yes. Look, Ivor is one of my favorite people that I subscribe to. I really like Ivor. He does really good. He comes from sort of an engineering background, which is good. Mapping is sort of part of that field of as well. We're practical. We like measuring things. People in mapping, cartography, these sort of things. We like mapping. We like measuring things properly. Data is very important. How quality of data is really important for us. So we're very sticklers to those rules, unlike the epidemiological researchers, especially the nutritional ones, who basically are fucking crackpots and have no respect for their professional integrity. At least people from the engineering background are far more diligent in getting things precise and measuring things correctly. Jay, we're all fucked in the end. I can tell you, we're all going out in a horizontal position, believe me. Don't stress too much about it. Yeah, it can actually. Up the vagus nerve, you can even get bacteria and a number of other things that can move up the vagus nerve. Yes. The wonderful body. That complex interaction between the brain and the gut. Yes. Yes. Even some bacteria, they are, some of the pathogenic ones, they can actually, hijack some of the signaling through the vagus nerve and try to get their nefarious things done. I want more sugar. Things like that. So when you see a cake or an ice cream, you go, exactly. That fucking hairy bloke, he succumbs to these fucking, addictive little pricks in there in his gut. God, what can I say? Needs to be sorted out. No, it's not. I don't have I don't have an alias on Discord. It's on Twitter and on Reddit, things like that, where I've got a bit of an alias. So yes, but no, not on Bart's. I'm pretty much I just come in as Harry Serpanos vanilla. There's nothing sort of nefarious or hidden or Machiavellian or whatever. Nothing to worry about. But actually, that's a good name. Actually, yes, Roy Orbit Sun. Nice one, Bo. I may adopt that. God. Yeah, that's all we bloody need, sun worshipping. Oh, God. You're locked in your house. Bjorn. Yes. You're a prisoner of the lockdown brigade. Yes. Those woke people keeping you away from the sun and God. Yes. Awful. Yes, he does. He's a bastard, isn't he? Yes, yes. Always said, Harry's got a better point on this one, but I'm just going to be annoying to Harry on this issue. You should have heard one idiot saying, "Oh, if they're flying, at a certain elevation, won't they fly out of the atmosphere?" And you go, "There's a gravity well." When you're at that sort of elevation and you maintain a certain type of, the engine power and all that, which will keep you up at that level, you're basically still affected by the gravity well of Earth. Otherwise, everything would float away off the planet if that was the case without the gravity well. Oh, well. Shocking, but believable. Yes. Because basically, if there was none of that gravity well, everything would be stuck on the ceiling. Yes. Oh, God. It's weird what some people believe. Anyway. Crazy stuff. Crazy stuff. Let alone the sun would not rise the way it rises either. So many things. Yes. And all those old people who talked about those sailors who kept an eye on seeing the pirate ships come over the horizon and seeing their flags, they must have been twits. This is the problem. People living in hermetically sealed little cities, and most of these flat earthers come from the vegan background. They're all crackpots. They were crackpots while they became basically vegans in the first place. And then when their health went to shit, they had no alternative but to go to meat, and then joined our community and infested with their nonsense, unfortunately, their pseudo crap and all that. And even some of their raw nonsense as well. We know who we're talking about in that regard as well. So, yes, it's unfortunate. But anyway, let's move on and ignore those pesky little annoying ex-vegans with their nonsense nowadays peddling in our community. I wish they'd go fucking away. There's just no sun in Ireland. Oh, well, shit happens. Yeah. Look, there's always options. people I know, look, it's really hard, because I don't know people's financial circumstantial stuff, and I shouldn't really say this. It's just unfortunate. In the past, we had sunrooms. All homes had sunrooms. People in the winter, at the middle of the day, where there was still some sun, that, yes, the UV was much lower, but they were outdoors all year round. And so they built up very high levels. It's like Lukey. He's out in the sun, sunbaking, and getting really high levels up to the 190 or 76 in nanograms. Why? You get to those levels. Then when winter comes, you will basically decline, but you won't decline to very low levels. You'll probably come down to the 40s from the 70s. And still at 40s, you're pretty good, 40, 50, you're still pretty good. You're not deficient. The problem is we start at a very low base even in summer. And then by the time at winter, we go from 30 odd to 20 odd or even lower. That's where the problem lies. And for me, the sun is the most important. But if you're going to have to, make sure that the D vitamins are either got no oils in them at all, and you basically you have them with food, so you get the fats to absorb the fat soluble vitamin, which is vitamin D. And if that's a problem because you can't take it with food at a certain time, it's a inconvenience to your lifestyle or whatever, at least consider the best option is an MCT based, or coconut based, or palm oil based oil. And of the other oils, of the mono type oils, the cold pressed extra virgin olive oil, and then give all the other ones a miss, because there's sunflower and all these other seed oils. Give all those a miss in that regard when you're getting your supplements. So, I mean, the olive oil ones and the palm oil ones tend to be the cheapest ones. The MCTs tend to be a bit more expensive. So do the coconut ones. The quantity of oil is very little, so the cost benefit or issues is very minor. So I'm not really particular about when it comes to D vitamins, as long as you keep away from the actual bad seed oils. You just stick to those, the monos and saturates, the ones with saturated fats and monounsaturated fats primarily. Less of a problem. If it's olive oil, it has to be extra virgin. It cannot be basically diluted or any other sort of light or crap or whatever. It has to be extra virgin. So it has to say that if it doesn't, give it a miss. Yeah. I think somebody did tell me that there is an MCT version that's actually relatively cheap, similar in price to those of Summer. I heard about it. I need to look into it, basically, and see what I come up with. So don't hold me to it. I'll see what I can find out. Because I know in Northern Europe, a lot of people work in offices. It's like in Tasmania, a lot of people work in office, and they just say, Harry, I don't know where you get the time. I've got kids and other family members that I have to look after, and I just don't have the time to go out for long walks like you do and get the sun and all that. I just can't do that. I need to, because in winter, I'll be working from home more days. And the reason for that is so I can have those long winter like 2-3 hour lunches where I walk around getting as much sun as possible, so I'll be doing that. But other people can't do that, and I sympathize and I can understand, and that's why I say, well, next best thing is basically, but I said, try and get some sun, because you still need cholesterol sort of that will basically, it's called cholesterol sulfur. this sort of a sulfonated water soluble type, which is really important as well. And there are a whole lot of other parts of the spectrum of light that come from the actual sun that actually have benefits as well to different tissue and their effects. They also provide certain energy, through the photonic effect on cytochrome C in the complex 4 of the mitochondria. So there's so much fucking benefits, guys. The sun is way superior than supplements, but I sympathize with people. I feel for people, because I've been in similar cases. If you're a young person with a young family, you're up to your eyeballs with a mortgage, you've got all these things, the last thing you're going to be worried about is getting out in the sun when you need to sort out your kid, you're working long hours to make enough money to pay your mortgage and stuff like that. I sympathize that. I mean, I'm in an older age bracket, so I don't have as many of those responsibilities like those sort of people. So I can understand. And so we can talk about this sort of stuff, but sometimes we need to provide practical solutions. And like Angela, she's probably in a spot where she doesn't have that capacity, that ease and whatever. So yeah, just get a good quality supplement. That's the key thing that actually counts. We can't be too ideological about it, but as much sun as you can get in is really, really helpful for a lot of other things. So yeah, if you can, please do. It's really good for your body. Yeah, they do. They do. That's true. That is very true. That is very true. Unlike the actual veg tarts, which are literally pulling themselves apart. It's so funny. I actually was talking with my mate Sean yesterday, and we were saying how ridiculous a veg tart are they actually now fighting amongst themselves. And I said to him, "Did you hear the new one?" I said, "Sean, did you hear that basically there is now people that are classified as white vegans?" And he said, "What?" I said, "Yeah, next it'll be basically, white vegans, not against only black vegans, but also white vegans against, hermaphrodites or trans vegans or stuff like that." I said, initially they united with the woke brigade to try and get the power, take control of the society forces. Now they're turning in on each other like they typically do, these people, because they've got all their own specific agendas, and now they're starting to fight amongst themselves like mad. It's laughable. So yes, I think we're going to enjoy a lot. I loved what Sean Baker did recently, where he said, I'm eating shitloads of meat. I'm not a white vegan. That was a really nice one. What a that was comical. That was priceless. Yes. So my mate literally laughed about it. He was, was pretty good. Chronic disease in modern phenomenon. Exactly. Living according to nature. Animals live long and healthy lives. Nature is always the answer. Well, so and so. Nature can be quite violent. Nature can be quite infant mortality can be quite high. Pathogens can be up the yin yang, and that actually creates a lot of infant mortality and all that. So it's not so rosy, but a halfway house where you're not completely disconnected from nature is probably the best thing. So there are some benefits of the modern world, but when you really disconnect yourself from nature, yes, it really goes to shit. And when you don't have enough, let's say, fat in the game in nature, you also, some tribal groups which were in environments which were more drier, more temperate and dry, like the North American Plain Indians, they tend to do much better. So there are variations. There's a lot of things. If you're in the tropics, you're going to be dealing with more parasites and pathogens and stuff like that. So there can be far more issues along those lines. But generally speaking, the more you're connected with the planet in one way or another, it's going to be much better on a lot of fronts. But there are benefits with modern, both vaccinations, sanitation, and even antibiotics, even though they've been heavily misused. People used to get injured in the past and die from septic shock. Now with antibiotics, they don't die. That's where antibiotics should be used, in those rare cases to prevent death, not willy-nilly being used for every single little cough. Somebody turns up at the doctor's thing and coughs a bit. Oh, here's your antibiotic. You don't need it. Most people do not need. If they've got a good vitamin D status, pathogens are really kept under control much better with a good vitamin D status. In my recent video that I did about also the feline type disease, basically showed the same thing. So I say to people that it's not rocket science in that regard. But unfortunately, we have a situation where we live in a funny environment where we're either over medicating for one thing or another, or taking things that we don't need, or it's a weird world that we live in if you really think about it. But when it comes to parasites, the body with good levels of cholesterol, it's like the Titsmani people. That's right. I was trying to remember the damn Titsmani. They were riddled with parasites, but they have the lowest cardiovascular calcium score ever recorded, even though they consume a lot of animal and even raw animal foods, and they have a lot of parasites. But, their LDL is in the toilet because most of their cholesterol is being used to deal with those parasites. But it just shows you that basically that the body can be quite robust if it's got enough vitamin D and the immune system is working well. It's got enough cholesterol to basically provide the material to furnish that vitamin D. Because remember, cholesterol, only you have to change one part of the cholesterol to change it into vitamin D. So, don't have enough cholesterol, you're not going to have enough vitamin D. I'm sorry, but it's not enough. It's the reason that even Lukey was sunbaking at about 62, and I told him to up his animal intake. I said, Luke, you've got to eat more meat, mate. You've got to get more fat-soluble vitamins in. You've got to get more animal foods in. He did that. He jumped from the 62, I think it was 62, the previous one, I can't remember. You'll have to ask him, Necro, Kitty, and from the 60s around there, his previous test, and it jumped all up to now, the recent one, 76. That is a massive jump, and the reason for that is because he put more cholesterol in there and he provided the body the cholesterol that it needed to create that thing and protect it. Now, if you're living in a city, you're going to be less prone to have a lot of these parasites and stuff like that, which is good. Actually, it's a good thing. And with that extra vitamin D and fat-soluble vitamins and all that, you know what? Your body's going to have enough material to say, well, we don't have parasites to deal with, but we've got a bit of tissue damage here and a bit of tissue damage there. Let's repair it. And you're going to get additional repair. What does that repair do for you? It actually allows you to live longer. So that's why I'm saying that let's not throw out the baby with the bathwater, the modern world, but let's basically try and actually, you could say, re-anchor the modern world back to nature in a sense. So we don't throw everything away, but at the same time we realize that we can't completely separate ourselves from nature. That is very dangerous when we separate ourselves from the earth, earthing ourselves, when we separate ourselves from good nutrition, animal foods that come from our natural world, that eat in a natural way, grass and not some kibble shit, and at the same time, we get sufficient sun to provide us with what we need to support our bodies. And that's the way I sort of see this synergy between a modern and natural sort of nexus connection. It basically means that we really have to dethrone big pharma, big agri, and these are big entities to dethrone, but really these are the entities that need to be dethroned, because these are the entities that basically have created the toxic environment. So that's the sort of direction we need to take, and we need to do a number of things on other fronts. There's too much plastic around as well. That's not good. I mean, there are too many xenoestrogens in our food environment and our water environment and all that. It's not a good thing. All these damn plastics. We use far too many other petrochemical products, and we're damaging waterways and rivers and the oceans with a lot of this crap. So even us carnies can be more, but let's say the right type of environmentalists, the people that basically want to protect the real environment, not sort of the make-believe, some sort of airy-fairy, vegan playground of the real world is quite a violent world. It always has been, and nature is quite violent in the way life begets life, and that cycle of life and death. That's the reality. We are not animals like the other animals. We may be biological, carbon-based organisms, but at the fundamental level, what we are is humans, and we are humane. Our animals actually live very stress-free lives. They live in paddocks. They don't congregate together out of fear from predators. They just waltz around, eating grass, living carefree lives, even better than humans. Humans live far more stressful lives, having to work out finances and all sorts of things. And then they are taken into a shed, knocked out, and then slaughtered. That's not a bad life, in a sense. And then they contribute to basically us good animal nutrition to help our bodies. That's the message we need to get out there to people, and sort of dispel a lot of this other nonsense that's out there. I've talked about a bit in the previous one. I need to do an environmental one. I need to do one on some of this sort of stuff. I've done a lot of disjointed stuff. Like I did the sort of the methane stuff on that study and did this and that. And it's really so disjointed sort of stuff. I need to really bring it all together and really make a proper video of that. It's something that I want to do. I'm more focused on the health side of things, but I do want to do later in this year a series on the environment and a series on this sort of stuff, these sort of questions, and really go into the science hardcore, looking at desertification, looking at all these sort of things, looking at some of the agricultural practices, really drilling down on some of the details. So you guys have got shitloads of ammo to basically deal with the misanthropists out there that are telling us that there is something wrong with us. It's them that they are wrong. They have stepped far too far away from nature. It's they who are the misanthropists, and they who are the anti-nature, brigade. That's the truth of it. If you look at it, they don't derive their ethics from God, and they don't derive their ethics from objectivity, because there is nothing. They would have to accept Darwinian, the struggle between species and the survival of the most adaptable of the species at the expense of other species, because that is what Darwin said. We are all species. A bull will literally walk right over you. if it wants to get to another paddock or whatever, or to the grass, and you're in front of it. So let's throw away this bullshit, because that's the reality. They say we're species and they say this stuff and all that, but so are all the other animals. That means that they would reject Darwinian logic. They say they're atheists and they respect this scientific. They're not. They're pseudo idiots, morons. They make shit up. Basically, they can't handle the natural world. That's the truth. Somebody that cannot not cope with death and life and the normal cycle of death and life has a problem, a psychological problem. They can't cope with natural processes that they are part of. That is their problem, because they've been so disconnected from their own food supply, which is another problem, because as a tribal person, you would have been exposed very early and it would have been normal. You'd be in a village, you'd slaughter an animal, it's normal. You'd see a dead person, they'd be put out. Like I remember as a youngster, we went around a dead person and the person was put in a coffin and put it on display. And you went there and, and basically honored that person and basically, spoke to the family and, tried to, provide them support and stuff like that. And these sort of things of consoling, people and things like that when they're bereaving. But you get used to it. You realize that, we come in this earth and we basically, that's the way we go out. And you don't have a problem with life and death. These people do, because they are so insular from this type of way of living. They, in their little hermetically sealed high-tech homes, and for them it's completely and utter alien. And that is why they think the way they fucking think. It's not accidental. It's unfortunate that they've actually lost their way in such a way, but that's the reality. And I did again my stupid strolling and lost my sport. Bravo, Harry. You're so good at this, aren't you? Oh God, I need to keep. The biggest problem is usually I have the other part here, but it's sort of, because the way this setup is, it changes, and it just, where I have the other, I've got on this screen, which is supposed to be on this screen. Anyway, that's my issue. I need to sort something out and get used to doing it the right way. Anyway, God almighty, I said at the time. God, we're down to 23 minutes. I'm actually just going to quickly float through some of this sort of stuff because I've had enough rants. And I wouldn't go that far. But yeah, sometimes I do think about things a bit too deep. Maybe not deep enough. But anyway, it's about Israel. In Israel, country open to proof of vaccine or COVID infection. I'm not actually sure what they. I know there are some countries that have got, like, to access, there may be passports, there may be certificates, there may be basically to allow people to move a certain amount. I haven't really looked into it sufficiently to really comment. But it is disturbing, some of this stuff, to be honest. It is. It is bloody disturbing. Yeah, exactly. It is fucking disturbing, this sort of stuff. It's very Orwellian in nature. People should not be basically required. People should not basically be controlled in that regard. I don't know about your country. There is, in some countries, where there is protection of religious freedoms in the Constitution. There is in Australia. But I don't know, Bjorn, about in your situation whether you can use that or not. I don't know what the constitutional or legal framework of your country is. But then again, not many people are basically going to be willing to go to court and try to fight it's not very good. Let's put it that way, the way we're being corralled or pressured to do things against our will. Yeah, I know. Qantas a bunch of wankers. The leader of Qantas a fucking woke piece of shit. Why does it surprise anyone? So let's put it that way. Oh, did you, Blinky? Oh, poor Blinky. Yeah, that was the one that we actually showed. The vitamin H. Yes. You got the H to the Roy thing. I hope you've got deep pockets. There could be people out there that basically may actually... Yes, MK4 is very good for dementia. So is taurine. So is vitamin D. So is all those lovely fat-soluble vitamins. Yes, they are so damn important. Look, just even if I never showed you a study showing that, even though I can show you studies that showing that, DJ Projectus, just think. Let's go back before the 1970s when the food guidelines came out and we changed our diet from 30% carbohydrate right up to 70% carbohydrate. Were the dementia rates and all the other issues of these sort of much lower in that era? Yes, they were. There were many people into old age dying without dementia. And then we hit the modern world in the last couple of decades. It exploded out of proportion. It's not accidental. When you reduce the micronutrient, you create micronutrient deficiencies. We only have to see it amongst the micronutrient deficient vegans and their brain fog, and people like Richard Burgess, vegan gains, literally falling over himself, going into brain fog and shitting himself. If that doesn't tell you, or now he sits there sort of, pondering and talking, he doesn't have that energetic thing that he had when he was younger. A couple of years back when he was, trimmer, early stages of veganism, and he was, still had a lot of good nutrition from his previous, animal eating, even though it wasn't a lot or from a sad diet, it was still more than he was on a vegan diet. And that deterioration, and pretty much, look how he is. He's like a fucking mess. What is he going to be like in 10 years' time? Scary. And this is what we need to realize. This is the reality. We need to embrace our ancestral foods. And when we do that, we're going to be fucking better for it. Anyway, I've got a few Christian things here. I sort of don't really like touching on that too much, even though, I'm Orthodox and, my position towards the Vatican and things like that. But I sort of don't really like to get too much into that. I do have Italian friends. And so I tend to not want to basically be too, you know what I mean. Anyway, I wanted to visit Greece, but now they want to make a vaccine passport mandatory. Yeah. It's because the Conservative government in Greece has decided to be as woke as the opposition, who are just as woke, and basically to satisfy the Queen wokeness in Germany, which is Merkel. Angela Merkel basically is Miss Woke of Europe, and she's basically decided to tell us all that we need to all basically be stamped and be passported, basically. Yes. So, yes. That's basically what's happening. And I'm very disappointed with both the previous government and the current government of Greece, the way they've basically bent over backwards to keep Brussels happy on this front. And basically it's, Brussels basically, and Merkel basically loves Brussels, and whatever the experts from Brussels tell her, she does, and she enforces with the power of the Deutschmark. The euro, the Deutschmark. You know what I mean? Yes, she enforces the rules of Europe. Yes, get your kibble and your passport, and you will be a good citizen of the European Union. God almighty. Where have we landed is all I can say. Yeah, I know. Traditional Catholics. Look, a lot of my traditional Catholic friends, they also sort of exasperate of where the church has gone. Yes, bishops, cardinals, and mafia. Yeah, very much so. Yes. And also the Masons as well. Let's not forget the Masons. Yes. The dear Masons, actually, with some rich people, toppled me from president of the Greek community down here. And they enjoyed it. And they appointed a Mason to basically take over. Yes. So, yes. Only the Greek Orthodox Church is opposed to Masonry. So we're quite adamant, hostile to the Masons, because they are the devil's henchmen on earth. This is a nutritional. I won't go into any more of my views on the religious front. I'll leave that for for people like Tristan and a few others. But yes, I've had the pleasure of dealing with some of these people. Wonderful people, such humanitarians, such lovers of, or such humanists. Oh, yes. Such holy people. Bunch of fucking cutthroats that would kill their own mother for power. That's how bad they really are. Anyway. Richard, the Sputnik one is a bit like the AstraZeneca in a sense. Very similar to the AstraZeneca Sputnik. It's not that much different. It just uses a different protein for the spike. It's not too dissimilar. The thing that I don't like about the Sputnik and the AstraZeneca is that you're only actually putting one key spike, which the Noravax I actually prefer because it's a more traditional way. You're getting all the different spike proteins and throwing them all in there, and basically in a small amount, so you're not over exaggerating the immune response, which we don't want. And you're basically still telling the body, if you see these spike proteins, deal with them as you may, put them in their place. And that's, I think, I like a better thing, the way that works. Look, the Sputnik and the AstraZeneca are probably the second best to that approach, but they're not the best. I would say the best is that more traditional approach, because we've done it so many times. We know it works and we know it doesn't cause any issues. So why not use that method? Why are we using all these other methods, which are new approaches that we haven't really used and we haven't really tested sufficiently? That's my issue with them. So it's not so much vaccines per se that I have an issue. I have an issue with some of the technologies that are used and the approaches. Because if you basically introduce something in a smaller viral load, no different than what would be a virus, and that's what that traditional Noravax approach is, then, it's a non-issue, you know, whether you got the real virus or you got this sort of, you know, type, which mimics the real thing, the real McCoy. What's the difference? It's not an issue. When you start introducing other things like, you know, other proteins from other types of organisms and other things and stuff like that, that's where it's technology that's never been used before to the same level. And that's where I have a bit of an issue with that sort of stuff. So if I'm going to do anything, it'll be the Noravax type and only that and nothing else. And even if I have to pay it out of my own pocket. And that's the only reason, because I want to be able to travel. Not that I want to comply with these bastards, but, you know, when the majority of the society is going that way and you're in a democracy, you're outvoted and you got no option, well, you can bitch and moan as much as you like, but you're never going to get on a plane again. Then, you know, you go for the least problematic way. And that's what I would do. That's me. What you do is your business. I would never tell people how to live their life. That's their business. What's beyond it? Yeah, it is. It's everyone's human right to be able to travel freely. Even the Australian Constitution actually says the free movement of goods and people. So, you know, that's been sort of literally just trampled on in this country. But, and I suspect in many other countries as well. They're using like emergency rules, which you under certain, there are other statutes in the Constitution which allow them, but for a small period of time, not for indefinite. But they're playing really insidious games trying to make it more indefinite. That's what is concerning. You know, if I don't want to take something, if I was older, in an older age bracket, like my father who's 86, I'll probably get him the Noravax and get him to do that. Why? Because he's in a more vulnerable sort of spot. And if I was in that older age group, I would take it. Simple as that. I don't have a problem, but I'd take the least problematic one. But in my age, with a good vitamin D status, do I really need it? Not really. But am I going to be forced if I want to travel and things like that? Possibly. Now people will say, "Oh, you could fight it." Yeah, I could fight it. But then again, if I'm taking something that's the least problematic, it's not going to cost me money, because problem is all I'm going to do is just feed the beast. The lawyers are going to make shitloads of money, and the satisfaction is going to be a hollow satisfaction, unfortunately, because that's the, you know, there's not much justice in this world. We've got to be realistic about these things. Unfortunately, that's the truth. Pisses me off, but that's the way it is. I think I had COVID. Natural immunization is better than any vaccine. Yes, it is, actually. It definitely is, especially for these sort of corona type viruses. It definitely is. They're not like measles or something else, polio, something like that could potentially cause you a lot of problems or death. Things like these, unless you've got comorbidities, you're very old, you've got low vitamin D status and all that, most carnivores realize that they need to basically have good nutrition, vitamin D status and that. But the problem is, we're a minority, and the majority are basically kowtowing or basically accepting these measures. And that's where the problem lies. At the end of the day, you can either go bush, or you can find the least problematic way of complying. It's not something that I enjoy doing, in a sense, you could say, but sometimes they give you no choice and they hold all the cards, and that's a problem. And I understand why people are pissed off, because I am as well. But as I said to other people, I said, well, you can say no, and if you do say no, basically you may not be able to leave the state ever, and that's not the way I want to live anyway. I would like to travel the world. And the problem is, even if Australia was to get rid of that rule completely, you've still got the problem of getting into other countries that they may require it. And I would still love to see many parts of the world. Yeah, they're not making it easy for us. Let's put it that way. I don't tell people how to live their lives. I just basically try and provide people with the best information. What they do with that information is up to you. At the end of the day, you're free humans with rights, and how you exercise those rights is up to you. If you want to take them on, your prerogative. I've got no problems with that. I will sit on the side there cheering you on and supporting you. So don't think in that regard I wouldn't. But at the same time, I have to be a bit realistic about some of these things. And I think the only way people are going to get traction in this sort of area of human rights is through, I would not try and do litigation as Harry Serpanos or as Bjorn or whatever. I would look at class action. It's less costly. You got many people, like-minded, creating a group of people out there and rallying them and basically getting them to basically sign up and support a fund that basically will allow for people to take on these people. That's a more practical approach. Trying to litigate on your own, God almighty. Do you want to spend the next decade in court and potentially not even winning, and paying an arm and a leg in legal fees, and being literally bankrupt potentially? Not worth it. So unless you've got a big group, only a big group of people can make a difference. Small little people get squashed, unfortunately, because the world isn't a fair place. It's the reality, unfortunately. That is the truth. I know that a lot of us would wish it was different, but it isn't. And that is the reality, guys. Let me just find that other one. I think Blinky's got another one there for me. Okay, where is it? Why isn't this scrolling? I've had a lot of issues today for some bloody reason. A lot of these things are not working as per normal, which is annoying, but oh, yes. Yes. I watch Harry. Roy is better. Nice one, Blinky. Oh, yes. Always creative. Thank you, Blinky. Thanks, Tracy. Yeah, see ya. I was trying to keep it light, get a bit good information through, and keeping it light, and sort of also scheming behind Roy's back, are you, Blinky? That Harry man, is scheming behind my back, trying to make a special alliance with Blinky. Awful, isn't it, Dom? Damn awful. Can't trust anyone these days. Hey, Neff, good to see you, mate. You definitely want to be over 40. You definitely want to be over 40 nanograms per deciliter, or in the nanomoles per milliliter, you've got to times that with, which is the metric system, 2.5. So 40 times 2.5 is basically 100. Yes. So either 40 in the one method or 100 in the other method is your minimum in that sense. Most people think that that is a normal range. I think it's a minimum. Below that is not a good place. Parasites and all sort of things, you're more susceptible to infections and all sorts of things. Your immune system can be more easily compromised at below those levels. So I would say the middle of the range would be around the 50 to 60. I would say closer to 60 would be better. And anything above that would be great. Not always. You got to do a lot of sunbaking, let's call it that way. So extra cholesterol and plenty of sunbaking, and just ask Lukey next time. He does quite a bit of sunbaking through the day, so that's how he keeps his levels that high. It's like at lunchtimes and stuff like that, I try to do long walks in the sun, lie down in the sun, try and get maximize my sun exposure to get my levels really high. Makes a big difference, to the whole body. Just the body just feels better, more robust, more strong. The sun is so therapeutic. It's the reason why I can just guzzle down shitloads of high histamine type foods, or fermented foods. Doesn't bother me. I know other people are reactive just with minor. It's because I got leaky gut. It's because their vitamin D is in the toilet. They really need to get their vitamin D up. It's just so critical. Most of our issues would be resolved on any diet. On any diet, let me say that again, on any diet with good levels of vitamin D. Now, obviously, you're not going to have the same longevity. You're not going to have the same total health in terms of cardiovascular health, dementia, and many other things. But in terms of gut health, vitamin D would resolve a lot of gut health problems for a lot of people on most diets. At worst, it'd probably be the vegan diet, and the only reason for that is because it's got too little cholesterol, so you can never really get the vitamin D levels up because you just don't have enough fat in it. It's the problem with that diet. But any other diet, even a vegetarian diet, you can actually get quite a bit of fat in it if people consume a lot of eggs and dairy and make it a more dairy, egg-centric type vegetarian diet. Yeah, they can do pretty well even on that diet. But generally speaking, the more animal foods, the more cholesterol you have in the system, the more vitamin D you'll produce. So, cholesterol's very important. Even if you're supplementing, cholesterol's still important. You still need to support all those conversion pathways, and cholesterol is an important player there as well. So, cholesterol central to vitamin D status. So it's basically a marriage forged between cholesterol and the sun. Vitamin D is a marriage between cholesterol and the sun, basically. So that's how important both of those things are. Yeah. So, and even if you're supplementing, which is sort of like you've captured the sun in a supplement, you still need the cholesterol for those additional conversions and all that. So very important. Yes. That's a nice way, F, to basically call all the others. Yeah. Ah, thanks, mate. Yes, new haircut. Yes, it's the new Roy style. Yes, pretty much. It's a bit longer up here on top. Still a bit white in the middle. Oh, well, you can't. Yeah, a few greys. They're not going to go. Photosensitivity and the genes don't help. But anyway, shit happens. Yeah, but let me just quickly. Does it take weeks or two for the body to convert vitamin D supplement to active form? If so, yeah, it can take. It varies. In some people, it can actually happen quicker than other people. Now, why does it happen? We've got zero research to know why it happens. So I can't give you an answer. And anybody gives you an answer, they're a crackpot. We don't have the science. So what is potentially happening? So let me just speculate, okay? This is not research. This is not science. This is Harry speculating. Okay. So in Harry's best speculation, what I think is happening is that there is the amount of cholesterol and a number of other nutrients that are playing a role in how quick this conversion happens. And that is why certain people can get their status up much faster than others. I think people on a carnivore diet can get it up much quicker within a week rather than 2. And I think the difference is because of the other nutrients that are in there that can actually accelerate that process. But do I have a study to show that? No, because nobody's actually taken a carnivore and a vegan and a vegetarian and a sad dieter, taken a number of people and randomized them on these diets and given them vitamin D and seen in winter whether they could actually get their status higher than others and who got a better status. So unless somebody does a study like that, I don't know. All I can say is that some people who have taken vitamin D supplements report, this is multiple ends of ones where they say that my vitamin D to get up to a certain level took 2 or 3 weeks. And others have claimed that it took them less, even up to 1 week. So what are the other factors? Don't know. It's usually people that are on more animal-based diets that seem to have this effect. Like people paleo, keto, low carbers, carnivores, and people like that tend to get their status much higher. I would say it's probably all those other fat-soluble vitamins, because vitamin D does interact with those other fat-soluble vitamins. Cholesterol, more cholesterol in there as well. So I suspect all these things are playing a role. Can I prove it? No, because we don't have any research to prove anything. We can only go on anecdotes. As Bart would say, all you've got is anecdotes, Harry. Exactly. And that is all I have, anecdotes. So yeah, it's not a perfect question, but we don't have the science to provide a perfect answer to that question. That's all I can give you, Dom. But I would bet my bottom dollar, Dom, that I suspect the other nutrients in our diet have a lot to do with it as well. I would be shocked if they didn't, because they have an effect on a whole lot of other things. So, yeah. Building pyramids. Easy. Yes, humans and their ingenuity. I actually remember seeing a French documentary and some of the techniques and some of the mathematics and some of the engineering technologies and all that, and demonstrating how to do this sort of stuff. Yes, it can be done. And the middle of the pyramids, they actually build the outer part. The middle is a lot of soil and certain structures that are built in. So you don't need as much of these rocks as most people think. But they are placed in a certain strategic form to basically create this sort of pressure that holds it all in place. You can actually go, there's where the Great Pyramids are, you can go quite south, and there's a couple of pyramids that were failures. They fucked up, the engineers, and they abandoned them because they got it wrong. And they realized that. And if you go further south into Sudan and places like that, you'll find the old, primitive, original pyramids, which were little, smaller structures. All they've done is just scale the whole fucking thing up and develop better approaches to scale it up and use more people. So, yes, nothing magical about it, just human ingenuity. Just because we had the Bronze Age collapse, as it was called, and we lost a lot of the intelligentsia of that time and that technology, and then we wondered whether giants had built those things. And then in the modern era, crackpots thought that they were aliens. Yes, yes. Neff, you're looking at him. God. Fuck, where have you been, mate? Where have you been? You're not with a program. Get with a program. I'll get Blinky onto you. Hey, Blinky, pull Neff into line. What are you doing, boy? What are you doing? You're neglecting your duties. I'll give you a spanking if you keep that up. Exactly. Good, good, very good. Yep, yep. He fucking did a long time ago. What else have we got? I was gonna stop about 9, but I'm still going a bit. Doesn't matter. I don't give a shit. Yes. I have watched some of those episodes, and I had to laugh with all the nonsense that they came up with. Yes, it's this new age bullshit, the Gaia myths, and oh god, all that sort of crap. Part of all that fucking part of the demonic, what I call the demonic mafia. They are not our friends, believe me. They are just other crackpots. All these crackpots come up at the same time. Whenever there's a crisis in society, they want to divide and rule with crackpottery and muddy the waters. And they find vulnerable people to exploit who are pissed off with the system, who are questioning, and to redirect them to this nonsense because it's much easier to redirect people. It's like basically the idiots that promote, the reptile people, more nonsense. And it works, because some people get sucked into that sort of stuff. It's no different than the early emperor kings and kings and emperors and all that. They made themselves god kings. Why? Because people fear gods. And if it's a god king, you're not going to depose them, even when things get a bit harsh. So things have to get really harsh when you lose your faith in your god king, and then you depose him. So that's how it used to happen. So yes. So Mr. Gregor, you are an alien. That explains everything. Yes. So you constipate yourself not on dairy, but on grasses. Yes. The green stuff. Yes. You're the green man. Good to see you. Had to use the humor. Good evening to you as well. Yes. Dr. Gregor. Sir Gregor to the rest of you infidels. That's a new one. Time travelers. Nice one. Yes. They could really probe and help with constipation. That is true. Yes. As I say, yes, I understand why some of those people do sort of gravitate to that sort of stuff. Yes. Originally many vegans and ex-vegans. Yes. Understood. Yes. When you have issues, yes, all the help you can get, even extraterrestrial one. Yes. What's that one? I'm good, but out of business with Michael killing corridor on his treadmill. Yes. I haven't seen him for a while. I haven't seen Gregor for a while. I probably should actually just check to see what state of affairs or what. Be probably horrific and scary to look at him. You know. Oh yes, didn't you know, Neff? We are aliens. Yes, we are definitely aliens. Didn't you know that? Yes, aliens to some other species out there at a very distant place. I can't always use Gregor's pics on so much on Instagram. Hey, they've made him popular. You know, he wasn't made popular by the vegan community. It was actually made popular by our community. He should basically thank us. Precisely. Oh, thanks for letting us know. Oh, yeah. I suspect they're worse even now. I haven't really seen him recently, you know. He looked really bad then. I can't imagine how worse he's probably got now. Yeah. So, yeah. It's a worry. Yes, Bo, very much. Vegan brain is leaner because their imagination is always running away with them. Yes. And shrinking as well. It's so damn funny in that regard. I need to. That's another thing. You got me thinking, Bo. Actually, I probably need to do because I've got all those little videos and little things and comments about the myths and falsehoods of veganism and a lot of that sort of stuff. I probably should make something and like a real good anti-vegan, nail those points really well thing and just put it when you guys could share it on different places or stuff like that, or at least use the material to post it in different places. Do you know the thing that really pisses me off with YouTube? If I go to my discussion page, and I'll bring it up. This is really how fucking insidious they are in the way they treat their. Let me just share this. This is basically, my discussion page. And I've got things here. Look at this, 11 months ago, which I'll talk about Hobart. 4 months ago, there was a number of people, ask me questions or stuff like that, or here, that's a year ago and all that. And about here, which is, because I've got all Bart's links, they haven't been touched. And I had basically the falsehoods of veganism, and all that. That has been removed multiple times. Each time I put it there, it stays there for about a couple of months, and then they remove it. They constantly remove that stuff, that whole list. It's really pissed me off. And that's why I want to make a video of it, because just recently they got rid of it again. And somebody actually asked me, and I was going to go to my discussion page. I've got it there. And then I go there and it wasn't there. And I'm going, fuck. Really pissed me off. And then I had to basically find it. And luckily I had it in a text file copied for a future video. And then I didn't lose it, because, trying to go through back your comments, historical, they've even removed the ability to easily go back through the comments on your damn, own channel. Fuck, I know it's infuriating, YouTube. And they literally keep on taking that one down, because it's got so really good points, showing, all their nonsense and pulling them apart in such a good way. I need to do a proper video for that as a good polemic. Because then, if I put that in the description page and all that, they can't get rid of that. They can't sort of that. At least, they will be forced to basically remove it. And when they do that, then I can argue why. What's your basis? I'm using actual science to demonstrate that this diet is wrong. What's your argument? You've got no proof, that I'm not alleging nonsense or putting up garbage. I'm actually demonstrating quite clearly and scientifically and showing actual studies from PubMed, not made up shit, not opinions, but actual science that actually shows that this diet actually increases inflammation. It does it this way, that way, and whatever else. These are they say this about cow farts or whatever. Well, here's a study that actually has been done scientifically to look at the type of carbon, whether it's carbon 12 or carbon 13, the type of isotopes in the methane of those damn gases that are in the that cycle through every 12 years. And they are coming from fossil fuels. They're not coming from the ones from ruminants, are actually declining, have been declining for years, since the 70s. So, that's why we've got these good arguments. And I've done a lot of, but I need to consolidate all that together into one video. So it's an ultimate, go out there and just nail the little shits over the head with it, bang them over the head, which is what, where that you can literally pull away their arguments. It's the reason why they don't, I've challenged quite a few of them that they never want to debate with me, because they've looked at that sort of stuff. They know the arguments and they know how strong the arguments are, because most people that actually argue with them, they don't argue these points. I don't know why. Don't ask me why, but they don't. They don't pull their whole edifice apart. It's probably because I used to be in student politics and debating and stuff like that, and I really like to rip people's arguments apart, in front of their faces. I really rubbed it in. I could be nasty. I'm not like that anymore. I was an atheist back then. I was a nasty piece of work. Nowadays, I'm a different sort of person. I don't like that my hatred isn't with a vegan person. They are just basically children of God as well. They've lost their way. My argument is with this misanthropic, demonic belief that they've got, that basically, would like to destroy our species, and are really hateful of our species. They basically, they're all in circles. They are automating more and more of their economy. They don't want rebellious commoners, basically potentially taking away what they've got. They want to upload themselves. They're so deluded, this post-humanist sort of idea. And as I've explained before, that's impossible because our brains are simulating different elements and interactive simulations. They work more like analog computers, not like digital discrete machines that work on algorithms. Algorithms can never be self-aware. They're just very good at computational stuff. They look smart, but they're not really. They're just really fast calculators and comparing one thing with another. Unfortunately, you can't upload yourself into that sort of shit. But that's how deluded these people are. Yeah, it's a wacky world. And a lot of the vegans have bought into this post-human shit and think that they will, with the kibble and the kibble culture, they will go on. It's just crazy out there. It's really crazy, the sort of shit that they believe in. Yes, we did. Yes, that was really good stuff with Mary. Mary Burt will be coming back. She's actually on... she's gone to Africa. She's doing nutritional research. She is a nutritionist by training. She's also, trained in a couple of other areas as well. I can't remember exactly everything, but she's quite skilled, and she does also research in nutrition. So she is one of those people that were originally sort of vegetarian type or whatever, then started looking at the blue zones, looking at these different groups in Africa and elsewhere, and realized that it ain't what the other people were saying. Because at least she wasn't basically one of those who were part of the establishment. That means they basically manipulated the data. And we know that basically the studies that have been done in the past where 17 years they hid the data because they just didn't get the result they were expecting. That was their fucking excuse. No, they deliberately hid the data for 17 years, for 2 decades, and made sure that seed oils permeated everything within the food supply. They are basically, that is beyond a crime. It's a crime against humanity to basically allow the entire food supply to be poisoned and to affect people's lives because they didn't want to lose face and they wanted to maintain their privileges and all that and their connections with the food industry, which they were very handsomely rewarded for many decades. So these people were basically criminals, plain and simple, But at least Mary and people like that are basically saying, came in, looked at the stuff and said, hold on, they told us this. We're not finding this. These people are eating shitloads of meat. They're eating shitloads of organ meats. They are basically living very different lives than what we're told. They're not consuming a lot of these other things that we're told they do. What the fuck is going on? And that is when she realized that she had been hoodwinked, that she had been deceived. And then she started looking in, going from the coast inlands to seeing how these people really traditionally lived, where a lot of that hadn't been lost yet. And she realized quite quickly that these people, like she said, some of the old men for lunch have pork belly. Exactly. We demonize pork and, these people are having pork belly and living longer than everyone else. But we know, from me, that pork is low in deuterium, that it's the lowest deuterium sort of source and lowest insulinogenic. That means it raises insulin the least out of all animal foods. So that from me that it actually is superior. And all the other shit that they talk about is just garbage. Absolute, excrement. But it's because, it played a narrative. Remember, when it comes to pigs basically, were the ultimate thing, even for back the vegetarian times. It wasn't, cows weren't the pig was the big thing. Pig was considered an omnivore, more similar to us, the way it's, it's monogastric and stuff like that. Or they saw a lot of similarities. It was very smart like a dog, not dumb like a cow. I mean, the modern vegans have embraced even the dumb animals like cows, but the vegetarians are more into and they were the early proponents of demonizing, pork and lard and stuff like that. They were the early. If you look at the early vegetarians and the vegetarian sort of research, it was all on lard and pork. If you remember all the research, you just take a look at the research, guys. I go, look at the research and all the actual stuff that even Salad Boy used to wheel out. He said, "Oh, here's another rat study that's got lard in it." He sort of ignored the cotton, the cottonseed oil and the seed oils and the refined sugars and the dextrose and all the other shit that they put in there with the small amount of lard, again to demonize this animal fat. Now, he just played along with the propaganda type studies that these crackpots had developed years ago and were peddling. That's where it really started, but people never look back to realize how in academia you had the first wave was these sort of plant-based type people, but they were more vegetarian-based, especially in the 60s and 70s when, the flower revolution and all that sort of shit. And these people slowly permeated academia. And over time, they pushed their agenda. And now we've had the second wave in the academic world, which is the vegans and, the toxic woke vegans, the white vegans. Yes, those white vegans. Yes. Need to sort them out as well. Get a few trannies in there to basically balance out the white vegans with the trannies. And yes, this is the sort of situation where we go. And they've got their own personal agendas in that regard. And they are pushing that. And the ones that actually really annoy me the most is the black vegans. And not because they're attacking the white vegans. I don't really give a shit about that. It's the level of wokeness to another level in terms of a lot of this sort of nonsense out there. The reality is they are very hostile to their own community. And there are some of them, this is how bad they are. There are some of them that are so demonic and so possessed, they actually say, listen to this, what some of these black vegans have said, that actually slavery of blacks was more humane than the slavery of animals. How crazy is that? Can you imagine, I mean, people like, a lot of the, people that fought against discrimination in the United States, they should be rolling in their graves, It's just crazy. The black vegans have gone to the next level. They hate their own kind. Not only do they hate humans, but they even basically think that their own kind, suffered less than animals. So they are belittling, millions of people that died through slavery, through the slave trade and all that. They're belittling them, these people, and their memories and their families and all that, and insulting them and telling them that, oh, you didn't suffer, that's nothing. Oh, the poor animals. Crazy. These people are just bizarre, beyond bizarre, just lunatics. It's crazy sort of stuff. This is where misanthropy leads, where you hate your own kind. It's not surprising that you hear some vegans basically saying that humans are a plague and they should be killed, where we've even seen vegan terrorism. These people are crazy. you know, they are, they basically, I can understand why some people, like Tristan, I wouldn't go as far, but as Tristan, I just think the lost souls, but he thinks that they are possessed by demons and stuff like that. I don't really have any proof for that sort of stuff. I wouldn't go that far, but but when you have this sort of thinking, you, as a person, you wonder whether they are or not, because that is really, evil type of thinking, but that's how much they hate humans. For them, human suffering is irrelevant. Actually, human culling of human is actually a good thing. They actually have a genocidal agenda against humanity. They actually think, with the elites and the kibble and all this part of that sort of, they think that the rest of us need to be culled out of the system. That's what they think. They think we're a burden on this planet. I say to them, you go first. I'll give you the gun and you can take yourself out. You go first. I'm not going anywhere. This is the madness that these people have. They're beyond lunacy. The sort of thinking in that community is just bizarre, to say the least. This is what happens when you don't have a foundation of a faith-based ethical system. You start going into this sort of nihilistic, bizarre type of thinking, so nihilism on steroids with moral relativism of a bizarre nature. This is what happens to people when they lose their way completely. And that's what's happened to the vegan community. And, it's not enough that they've turned against the rest of us, but even they're turning even against themselves. This is how bizarre this community is. It's, I don't know whether to cry or laugh about, how these people, can descend into such lunacy. It's crazy. Anyway, guys, it's getting late. I better get off this because eventually I need to get to bed. It's 10:45, so probably about another 45 plus minutes before, about an hour before I get to bed, and get my beauty sleep. No, just get the sleep that I need to basically get up and be functional tomorrow. So look, guys, I've really enjoyed dabbling in these sort of areas. We haven't probably gone into these areas for a while. I sort of dabble here and there and all that. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you enjoyed some of the stuff, some of the insights into these sort of groupings and what's happening and what people are saying out there, but logical stuff, grounded on stuff that we can actually prove, not make up stuff, because that doesn't help us, it ultimately doesn't help us. We need to be credible when it comes to our message, and get in line. There's a long line for that, Bjorn. There's a big long fucking line for that. In that case, get in line, mate. Get in line. You'll find a lot of us in that line as well. There's plenty of people, believe me. But yeah, look, it's and people like her are enablers. They enable these people, because really these people don't have that much political power. But these are the people that are enabling them, people in Brussels, people, of these sort that are basically sort of enabling this sort of mentality. Even China, which traditionally is very much a society which, embraced meat and stuff like that as an important part of the diet. Even they are starting to shift towards the kibble culture now. And there it's actually more dangerous because it's very authoritarian and they can actually impose it with greater efficiency. So I think it's going to be a lot of dark days for all of the Chinese as well, in that regard. So it's an unholy alliance of forces that basically don't really care about the commoners, about us. And they've got their own agendas of surviving the next crisis that is definitely coming, and they want to shore up their stocks. And unfortunately, they have a lot of people that are very sheepish and very compliant and will go along with any nonsense that they dream up to keep the whole thing going, this rocky Ponzi scheme. But as long as people sign off on it, the majority keeps going. That's the reality. All we can do is try and force some sensible reforms or hold back as much the tide of this misanthropy. We're living in very interesting times. Let's put it that way. Violence doesn't help, just isolates you. We don't need to succumb to the misanthropy of these people. But I am optimistic. I do think ultimately a lot of average people at some point are going to wake up from this madness and realize that enough is enough. You know, it's starting to happen in small pockets here and there, more in rural areas of different parts of the world, but eventually that will filter to the wider community, and people will get sick and tired because these people just making up shit continuously. They're saying to people, oh, you got to wear this, you got to do that, got to comply with that rule, you got to do this, you got to basically that. Now you want the kids to spy on the parents. And, you know, at some point the parents are going to start getting into trouble for frivolous things, and they're going to go, enough is enough. This craziness has to stop. We can't live in this crazy world anymore. And that's when, you know, these people are going to be brought into check at some point in the future. There will be a backlash by the so-called silent majority. And I can tell you there'll be a number of politicians that will jump on that bandwagon because they'll realize there are votes to be had and they don't want to miss out because they're opportunists. But you know what? I don't give a shit as long as they basically get the rules back to normality in that regard. Because I can tell you, when you unravel a system, things can turn very nasty. Remember the French Revolution? The guillotine never ran dry. So those things are, are never without severe consequences. You know, when you knock Humpty Dumpty down, it's much better, like some of the New Dealers where they did was dethrone the bankers in the 1950s. And back then, where they didn't even invite them to the Bretton Woods conference, they just excluded them, rightfully so. The bankers had no right to be there because they're selfish little bastards, which create an indebted society deliberately to maximize their concentration of wealth through making people indebted and pushing up asset prices to increase the debt levels of and dependency on them. Back then, interest rates were quite low. Bank loans were very easy. People had enough income to basically afford a house and everything with a few years' wages. That all changed when Reaganomics and Thatcherism came in and literally gave the bankers a free hand to do whatever they liked. And they did. And they basically pushed up asset prices like there was no tomorrow. Stock markets looked great, but everybody else was basically being impoverished at a very rapid rate. And that is why there are so many shanty towns around America for that reason, and many other European places, and many of the middle classes have been decimated and impoverished. It wasn't accidental. When you give the people the ability to push up asset prices, people can't afford homes, they can't afford things. All they can afford is kibble and poor paying shit jobs. And and the rest goes to a very small group, and that's what's actually happened. You got to limit. Even the ancient Greeks with direct democracy knew that if you didn't keep the aristocrats in check, they got out of control and tried to manipulate the system and bring the whole system down in their favor. And that's what they did in that era. And they did it in the Roaring 20s, and people realized that even a traditionalist who wasn't pro-worker or anything like that, like Roosevelt, realized that the bankers had gone too far and corrupted the system to such a degree they needed to be excluded. And we need to do the same thing. We need another Bretton Woods type conference, international one, where we fucking exclude the bankers and we reset the system to the majority's benefit, not to these aristocrats, as I call them, these banking and tech aristocrats who think that the rest of us are just dirt under their shoes. So, enough is enough. So we need to basically wake up the rest of the society, and that should be our mission, to wake them up both on nutrition and in terms of politics. Not pushy, doesn't work. You've got to basically point out those obvious little things that are annoying them. It's an easy way. When you see them with all this woke stuff, you say, aren't you sick and tired of this garbage? And they go, oh yeah, I'm sick and tired of this. Everybody's pissed off to some extent. Push those little pointers, because you don't need to basically convince them of your politics. You're not going to do that. Forget about trying to do that. It's like trying to convince a vegan to change to carnivore. Not going to happen. What you need to do is basically find those pressure points and push against them. And most people, when you're in a crowd of people that are talking about these things, make it an issue and push on it, because you want them to be motivated against those things. When their own turn against their own, it's really hard to fight them. As you can see, you can create a momentum, and then those on top that are pushing this agenda go, oh shit, our own people don't want it. We don't want to lose those votes. They start run and hide and give up on that. And those minority little groups lose power very quickly, because those people want to stay in power and they realize they don't have it anymore. Those others down there have woken up a bit and don't want that other stuff anymore. That's how it works. It's a smart way to do it. The dumb way is to basically be constantly at war with people. It doesn't work, believe me. You'll just be at war and you'll feel miserable and unhappy. Smartest way is to be in groups, whether you're in your kids are at a specific school and you're in the parents and friends associations. Play the politics there. Be smart about what you play. Accentuate those things that are annoying to you and to others without being too political. That's how you pull all that edifice apart from within and in a smart way. Be smart about it. Anyway, take care. It's nearly 10 o'clock and I have to fuck off. See, I did learn a few manipulative tricks as a student in politics. We might as well use those things for the good of humanity and the good of our children and the future generations. They will thank us for being proactive enough to deal with these, nasty, misanthropic, policies that are being pushed on us. We need to push back. Simple as that, guys. We definitely need to push back. Anyway, I appreciate it. You guys basically staying here for nearly 4 hours. It's been a long slog. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Take care. And hope to see you next week. I'm really enjoying doing these two, doing the Eurasian and covering everybody in Europe and Asia. I hope to get. I've had a few people from the subcontinent of India come and go. I've got a few that occasionally appear or occasionally send me emails, which is nice. There's a few people from different parts. I'd like to get more people of the Asian part as well. It's hard because of the language stuff as well, so it's not always easy. I was hoping to get more Hong Kongers, but it didn't really happen. But you never know in the future. Could change. All I need is one person to make me get me known there and amongst a few friends. That could help. It'd be nice. I do have some friends from Hong Kong that live here, very close friends. So maybe I should try and use them for that. Don't know. I don't want to be. I don't want to be imposing. You know what I mean with friends in that regard. So yeah, but hopefully we can try and slowly get some of the good messages out, and slowly erode some of this nonsense that is being imposed on us. This sort of light authoritarianism. We call it woke, but it's really authoritarianism. these forces are being used to basically impose, a new lifestyle, their reset, not our reset. We need to fight for our reset, not their reset. And that's how we should play it. Anyway, since they're using those politics, let's use their politics against them. Let's be smart about it. Anyway, guys, see you. I better get out of here. Bloody hell, it is 10. Shit. Anyway, thanks for being here. Appreciate it. Take care. And I will definitely see all you lovely people next week. Same time, 6 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. He never changes, does he? He never changes. What can one say? What can one say? You're living dangerously, Blinky. You're living very dangerously with this crowd. God, wonder who, Anyone want frog legs for dinner? See you guys. I'm out of here. Good night. Bye.